Hey everyone, welcome to the Paranormal M channel. Thanks so much for your continued support and for tuning in to our daily paranormal stories. I genuinely love doing this. And a huge thank you to everyone who's been sending in your own experiences. Don't forget to drop a comment below and tell us where you're listening from. Now, without further ado, get cozy under your blankets, pop on your headphones, and let's dive into today's paranormal encounters. And if you haven't already, please subscribe and turn on notifications. So, I've got two stories from growing up that still sit in the back of my mind like a song you can't quite place. I'm not someone who goes looking for paranormal stuff either. I've always been pretty practical about it. But these two moments, they happened in a way that still feels weirdly solid. First, a little setup. I grew up in this really old house, old enough that when my family added on to it, we had to deal with historic paperwork and all that. It wasn't like the place was constantly creepy. No cold spots, no slamming doors, none of the classic haunted house stuff. Honestly, it mostly just felt like a house that had been around a long time. When I was in second grade, my bedroom was at the end of a hallway. My parents' room was right beside mine, with our doors almost touching at the corner. Down the other end was my little brother's room. He was in preschool then. The bathroom sat between us, kind of like the hallway's midpoint. And for whatever reason, I always slept with my door open. I hated the feeling of a closed door at night. Even as a kid, I couldn't explain it. It just made me anxious. One night, I woke up to the sound of a toilet flushing. Not like a vague noise either, like the full, unmistakable whoosh of it. I rolled over, expecting to see my dad or my mom, or maybe my brother stumbling back to bed half asleep. But instead, this girl stepped out of the bathroom. She was taller than me, wearing this simple white nightgown that hung kind of straight, like something you'd picture in an old movie. She didn't shuffle or creep. She just walked like it was normal, like she belonged there. She came down the hallway toward my room, and then, right before she reached my doorway, she turned to face the wall and stopped. And then she just stood there, breathing. But not normal breathing. It was heavy, deep, rough breathing, like she'd just run a mile, or like every inhale took work, like she was pulling air in and pushing it out with everything she had. I remember lying there watching her, trying to make sense of it, and my brain basically landing on the only explanation it could tolerate. That must be my brother, even though it obviously wasn't. I got out of bed anyway, slowly, like I didn't want to startle her, or whatever she was. I crept toward her and waited for her to react, turn her head, glance at me, anything. But she didn't. Just kept staring at the wall, breathing like that. I kept inching closer until I was right there, close enough that if I leaned forward, my forehead would almost touch her shoulder. And I remember staring at her hair, the fabric of the nightgown, the way her posture was stiff but not tense, and that breathing filling the whole hallway. Then I lifted my hand. I watched my fingers move toward her, like I was doing it in slow motion, like I was proving to myself she was real. And right before I touched her, I panicked. Not a screaming panic, more like my body suddenly decided, nope, absolutely not. I yanked my hand back and bolted into my parents' room. I woke my mom up in this frantic whisper, like, why is he standing in the hallway? Why is he out there? And my mom, still half asleep, just went, what are you talking about? Because my little brother was right there, in their bed, sound asleep. My mom got up and searched the house, bathroom, hallway, closets, kitchen, the whole thing, like a parent going through the motions even when they're pretty sure it'll be nothing. but it was nothing. And even now, she doesn't have an explanation. What messes with me about that one is how clear it is. I wasn't a toddler. I was old enough to know what dreaming feels like, and this didn't feel like a dream. It felt like I woke up, heard the flush, saw someone step out, and then stood 3 feet away from them. I didn't see through her. She wasn't glowing or floating or anything. She looked like a regular person. And the strangest part is, I wasn't even terrified afterward. It was more like my brain filed it under, "That happened," and then just kept going. Okay, the second story is different. Less hallway ghost and more, what the heck is this? A few years later, around 5th grade, I got my first little music player, one of those early iPod-style ones, and I kept it charging next to my bed at night. I was obsessed with it. Music, games, photos, everything. One day I was showing my cousin Mariah some pictures on it, just scrolling through like normal, and I noticed 2 photos I did not remember taking. The first one was time-stamped a little after 5 in the morning. It was super blurry, basically useless, but it looked like it had been taken in my room, like the camera had moved mid-shot. The second one was taken a minute later, and that one was sharp enough to make my stomach drop. It was a photo of me asleep, taken from above, like from a top-down angle, looking straight down at my bed. You could see my face, my blanket pulled up, and both my hands tucked under the covers. I was clearly out cold. But the angle made no sense. It looked like whoever took it had the camera held a few feet above me, high enough that it wasn't just someone leaning over from the side, more like someone standing there with their arms stretched up, or something even higher. I stared at it, and Mariah stared at it, and neither of us knew what to say. It was one of those moments where you're both silent because saying it out loud makes it worse. I remember promising her we wouldn't tell anyone. And then, this part still bugs me, I deleted the photos. I don't know why I deleted them so fast. I think I just wanted it to stop being real. Like if the evidence disappeared, then it could go back to being nothing. Later, I tried to reason it out. The obvious suspects would be my family. But why would my parents use my device to take a picture of me sleeping at 5 in the morning? If they wanted a photo for some reason, which they never did, they had their own phones. And honestly, they weren't the type to do that at all. And my little brother? He was shorter than me by a lot back then. That camera angle would have been hard for him to get. Plus, why would he even do that? He wasn't sneaky like that. He was just a little kid. So I've basically sat on that story for years and never brought it up again. It feels strange to tell people as an adult, like they'll either laugh or immediately assume I'm exaggerating. But yeah, those are the 2. And the funny thing is, I still live in that same house. I'm literally telling you this from the same bedroom. And no, I don't feel unsafe. I don't feel watched. None of my friends have ever come over and said the place feels weird. Day to day, it's just home. But every once in a while, I'll think about that toilet flush, and the breathing in the hallway, and that photo looking down at me like someone was standing above my bed. And I get this little chill, like my brain is reminding me, some things happened that you still can't explain. Hey, so I've got to tell you about this place that's been living in my head ever since I started asking questions. My husband's grandma, let's call her Ms. Inez, grew up in this modest little house sitting on a big stretch of land just off an old highway. Not Old Highway 90 exactly, but one of those long, sun-faded roads that feels like it's seen 1,000 lives. She didn't just visit there, she lived there forever. Decades. Nearly her whole adult life. And the only reason she ever left was because the property got sold and the new owner basically forced the whole family out. Like, just ripped the ground out from under them. But what really gets me is that, for as long as I've known my husband, Caleb. He's talked about that house in this very particular way. Not like, oh yeah, my grandma's old place, but like, it left a mark on him. He told me that when he was a kid, all the cousins would sleep together out in the living room. Blankets on the floor, bodies everywhere, that kind of chaotic family sleepover vibe. And he said he'd wake up in the middle of the night and see it. A huge black shape. Not a person exactly, not an animal either. Just this heavy, solid darkness hovering above him. And the creepiest part is how long it would stay. Like it wasn't a flash, it wasn't a nightmare moment. He swears it would hover there for hours, and then it would disappear right before sunrise. Like it had some kind of schedule. And listen, Caleb's not easily rattled. He's the type who stays calm in situations where most people would panic. So when he tells me this is one of the only things that still makes his skin crawl, I take it seriously. So of course, once I heard that, I couldn't leave it alone. I started gently asking around, like, hey, did anything weird ever happen in that house? And his mom, Marisol, gets quiet immediately. And she tells me that when she was about 12, she saw a dark figure shaped like a man standing in the doorway by the kitchen. Just standing there, like it belonged there. And then she tells me something else. Years later, as an adult, she woke up one night and saw something hovering over her bed. Same kind of experience Caleb described. That hovering feeling. That presence just over you. At that point, I'm like, okay, this isn't just one person's imagination. So I keep going. I talk to one aunt, then another, and eventually I sit down with Ms. Inez herself. And she's interesting because she's calm, almost stubbornly calm. She tells me her oldest son, Rafa, once fell asleep on the couch in the living room and woke up with this pressure on his chest, like something was pushing down on him. And she said he told her he saw something, but he never explained what. Wouldn't. Like even saying it out loud would give it more power. Then she looks at me, steady as anything, and she goes, people say they saw things there, but I never did. I was never afraid. And she starts talking about how she kept saints and candles around the house, how she prayed her rosary, how she believes nothing could come near her because of her faith. And you can tell she truly believes that, like it's not a performance, it's her armor. But then, she tells me the part that chilled me more than the hovering thing. She says she used to hear footsteps. And then she drops this detail so casually, like it's just part of the weather. Before her father bought the house, he told her the previous family had left because their son had died there. Now, I don't know if that part is true. It's the kind of story that gets passed down and warped over time. But what everyone describes, the heaviness, the hovering, the watching, none of it feels like a child to me. It feels older, sharper, like a presence that isn't lost, but rooted. After that conversation, I tell the rest of the family what Ms. Inez said, and one of the aunts, Dahlia, immediately goes, oh yeah, I used to hear steps on the gravel outside. And she didn't just mean she heard it. She said she could literally see the rocks shifting, like someone was walking toward the house. That visual detail made my stomach drop, because that's not the kind of thing you half imagine. Either you see gravel move or you don't. And Marisol, sitting right next to me, suddenly says, almost like she'd been holding it in for years, one time, when I was little, I heard someone outside calling my name. And she said she went to the door to see who it was, and there was nobody there. That's the kind of thing that makes you feel sick, you know? Because calling your name is personal. It's intimate. It's bait. Later that same afternoon, Caleb and I drove by the house. There's a different family living there now, and the place has been fixed up. Fresh paint, cleaned up yard, like it's trying to look ordinary. From the road, it almost does. almost. But the living room window, where all those kids used to sleep, looked darker than it should have. I know that could be a million normal things: tinted glass, heavy curtains, bad lighting. But standing there with all those stories in my head, it felt like the house was still holding something behind that pain. And here's where it gets complicated. Because once I started connecting dots, I couldn't stop. This family, Caleb's family, has lived through so much loss. Strange illnesses, a long stretch of tragedies that seem to pile up. Ms. Inez herself has been bedridden for years with an illness nobody can fully explain. And recently, one relative has been dealing with serious kidney problems. Another became a widow out of nowhere. It's like grief has been orbiting them for a long time. And I keep wondering, does that presence have anything to do with it? Or is it the other way around? Like the house, the land, the old highway. Maybe it's a place where sorrow passes through, and the family just happened to live there long enough to become part of the story. I've also thought about the location. Being so close to an old highway means accidents, history, people passing through. And there's a church nearby too. Close enough you could probably hear bells on a quiet morning. Sometimes places like that feel layered, like the living and the dead are both leaving fingerprints. I don't know. I really don't. But what I do know is this. Whatever was in that house seemed to keep to the living room, seemed to come in the darkest hours, and seemed to leave right before sunrise. Like daylight was the one thing it respected. So, what do you think? Does that sound like a haunting tied to a death? Something attached to the land? Something that feeds on fear? Or something that just watches, waits, and repeats what it's always done, no matter who's sleeping under that roof? So before I tell you what happened, you should know this. I'm not new to weird stuff. I'm the kind of person who wants there to be a normal explanation first. I'll reach for logic, science, sleep deprivation, anything, before I start calling something paranormal. But what happened this morning, I'm still unsettled. Like I can feel it in my body even now. I live in this pretty average apartment complex on the edge of a busy city. Nothing remote, nothing spooky on paper. Just parking lots, streetlights, people coming and going. Still, I've had these small, unsettling moments in my unit over the past year. Little things that don't add up. A shadowy figure I caught in the corner of my eye once. The sound of something pacing when I was alone. And this one time I swear I saw a cat in my kitchen that wasn't mine. It looked at me like it belonged there, and then it was just gone. No sound, no scrambling under furniture, nothing. Anyway, this morning, well, technically still night, I jolted awake around 3:40 a.m. because of this long, drawn-out meow. Not a normal meow. It was stretched, loud, repetitive, like something calling out without stopping. It sounded scared, or hurt. We have 2 cats. One usually sleeps on the bed with us, the other likes curling up in the living room. So my first half-awake thought was, oh no, one of them is in trouble. And I know cat noises. I've had cats my whole life. This wasn't a heat yowl. It wasn't playful. It had that edge of panic. I checked on both of mine, both totally fine. Which is when I realized the sound was coming from outside. I went to the window and leaned out just enough to listen. The sound was coming from directly below, like right under our unit. We're on the 2nd floor, and the porch below us belongs to this guy named Marcos. Quiet neighbor, keeps to himself. I stood there for a second debating whether I should even go down, because it was early and I didn't want to be weird. But that meowing wouldn't stop. It didn't sound like something you ignore. So I slipped on shoes and crept outside. When I reached Marcos's porch, the porch light was already on. That made me pause. Like, why is your light on at almost 4 in the morning? But the meowing had stopped the second I got close, which somehow made it worse. You know how silence can feel louder than noise? I peeked over the little porch wall and saw a cat sitting there, pure white, almost glowing under the light. At first, I couldn't see its face because it was angled away from me, staring at the corner like it was watching something I couldn't see. I tried to get its attention like you normally would. The little pss pss pss, tongue clicks, soft talking. Nothing. Not even the tiniest ear flick. That's when I went back to my unit and grabbed a couple treats, thinking, okay, maybe it's hungry, maybe it's stuck, maybe it's somebody's cat that got locked out. I came back down and gently tossed a treat right in front of it. It landed so close it could have bumped its whiskers. Nothing. No head movement, no sniffing, no blink. Not even that little shift cats do when they're pretending not to care, but they totally care. It was like it didn't register the treat at all. And then I noticed it was trembling. A steady shake through its body. It was chilly outside, mid-50s, but not freeze and shake like that cold. Still, I told myself, maybe it's sick, maybe it's injured, maybe it's terrified. So I stayed, even though something in my chest was starting to tighten. I kept talking to it, soft and slow. Hey, sweetheart, it's okay. Are you lost? Are you hurt? Slowly. Too slowly. Not its body, just the head, like it was being rotated, like it had to think about how to do it. The shaking got worse as it turned, and I remember this really specific, awful thought popping into my mind. Please don't look at me. Please don't look at me. But it did. It turned just enough for us to make eye contact, and I swear to you, every instinct in me screamed. Because its eyes were wrong. Not kind of weird for a cat. Not dilated pupils. Not maybe the light is hitting them strangely. Wrong in a way my brain did not know how to file. They looked human. Full-on human. The shape, the round pupils, the way the iris sat, bright, clear blue. Like someone had taken human eyes and placed them into a cat's face. And I know how dramatic that sounds. I hear myself saying it and I hate it. But that's the closest I can get to what it felt like. I froze for a couple seconds, 2, maybe 3, and I couldn't move. It was like my body just hit a hard stop. Then it opened its mouth and let out one single sound. A meow, technically, but not really. It was raspier, heavier, almost like something doing an impression of a cat. Like when you hear a bird mimic something and it's close enough to fool you until you actually listen. And that sound went straight through me, like it hit something deep and primal and flipped a switch. I backed up without thinking. I didn't say anything. I didn't even breathe right. I just turned and walked, ran, back up the stairs, back into my apartment, and I locked the door like something was about to follow me. I shut the blinds, all of them, every window. Then I sat on the edge of my bed, shaking so hard my teeth felt loose. The adrenaline was insane, the same kind you get when you almost fall, when your body thinks you're about to die. My stomach turned. My skin felt hot and cold at the same time. I started getting nauseous, like my system didn't know what to do with how much fear I'd just dumped into it. Eventually, I took a cool shower and forced down some water and waited for my heart to calm down enough for me to function like a person again. But even now, I can still see it. Those eyes, the slow turn, the way it held the gaze like it knew I was there the whole time and was only pretending not to. I keep trying to explain it. Maybe it was sick. Maybe it was injured. Maybe the lighting made it look wrong. Maybe my brain filled in gaps because I was half asleep and stressed. But the problem is, the image hasn't faded the way a dream does. It's stuck in my head with this sharp, crystal clarity. And I don't know what to do with that. So this happened last summer, and I'm not exaggerating when I say it still creeps me out in a way I can't quite shake. I was on a road trip with my sister Marina, her partner Jules, and their dog Otis. We were driving through southern Oregon into northern California, those long stretches of trees and mountain road where it's gorgeous, but it can also feel weirdly quiet. Too quiet. We just peeled off I-5 outside Medford and started heading west on Highway 199 toward the coast. And pretty early on, I got this feeling I can only describe as heavy, like someone put a blanket over my brain. Nothing had actually happened. The weather was perfect. Bright sun, blue sky, that whole postcard vibe. But my body was acting like it knew something I didn't. Then we rolled through Cave Junction, and suddenly that weird feeling wasn't just in my head anymore. All three of us felt it. The town had this rough, unsettled energy, like you could tell there'd been a lot of hard living there. We actually decided not to stop for gas or even use a bathroom, even though we needed to, because none of us wanted to linger. A little while later, we crossed into California, went through this tunnel, and right after it we pulled into a rest stop, the one by the tunnel off 199, because at that point, we had to. No more toughing it out. When we pulled in, it was broad daylight and the whole rest area was pretty empty. I remember thinking, okay, good. Quick stop, in and out. Except the first thing we noticed was this white dog. It was wandering around the pet area alone, no leash, no collar, kind of a stocky mix, maybe pit bull, maybe something else. And there was no owner in sight. Otis is usually thrilled to jump out of the car anywhere, but we didn't want to let him out with this random off-leash dog roaming around. So we all just kept watching, waiting for somebody to appear and claim it. Marina and I went to the restroom, and right near the entrance, partially blocked by this divider wall, there was a van with its side door open. A woman was leaning into it, digging around like she was looking for something, and a man was yelling at her. Not joking yelling, angry, sharp. And there was music blasting, loud enough that it felt like it filled the whole building. What's wild is I remember the song clearly. It was a familiar rap track, the kind you instantly recognize, and I remember thinking, of course this is the soundtrack to this vibe. Inside the bathroom, while I was washing my hands, my sister stood in the doorway holding it open. From there, you couldn't actually see the van because that divider blocks the view, but the music was still just as loud. We were in there for maybe 10, 15 seconds longer? Not long at all. We step out, and the music is different. Not faded, not quieter, just different, like it had jumped tracks mid-thought. I didn't even look back toward the van because I wanted to be done with the whole rest stop energy as fast as possible. We go back to the car. Jules heads into the restroom while Marina and I stay in the front seats watching the dog area like hawks. And that's when we notice the only other vehicle parked near us. This older sedan, idling. A man got out. To me, and to Marina too, he looked older. Big white beard, plaid shirt, kind of weathered, like someone who'd lived outside a lot. He stood there calling for the white dog like, come on, that kind of thing. But the dog didn't even react. Not a glance. Nothing. Which made both of us immediately think, that is not his dog. He went back to his car, grabbed a dog bowl from the back seat, and walked toward the restroom like he was going to fill it with water. Then he came back, sat with his car door open, and kept calling. And then, this is the part that makes my stomach flip even now. We start to pull out, and suddenly, the white dog is gone, the man is gone, and the car is gone. Just gone. No engine sound, no backing out, no driving past us. Nothing. And here's why that matters. The rest stop is basically a big loop. To exit, you have to drive around and come out the same way you came in, which means that if that car left, it would have had to pass right by us. Marina and I both reacted at the exact same time, like, out loud. Where did he go? I was literally watching him. Because we were watching. We'd been waiting for that whole situation to clear up so we could let Otis out. Jules, trying to keep things normal, drove us back around to the pet area since, technically, the off-leash dog problem seemed solved. And Otis, who normally tries to launch himself out of the car the second a door cracks, refused. Not hesitated, refused. Jules had to physically coax him out, and even then he moved like his paws didn't want to touch the ground. Once he was out, he started sniffing like crazy, fast and frantic, like he was tracking something invisible. Then he startled, actually jumped like something spooked him, and he wouldn't potty. Just wouldn't. Meanwhile, that heavy feeling in my chest was climbing. It wasn't panic exactly. It was more like my body was ringing an alarm and my brain couldn't find the fire. We got back in the car and drove in silence for a long stretch after that, like none of us wanted to say anything and make it more real. That night, at the hotel, we finally started talking about it, trying to piece it together. Marina and I told our version first, and we matched perfectly. White dog alone, older bearded guy in plaid calling for it, dog bowl, then everything vanishing. And then Jules went really quiet, and she said, "That's not what I saw." She told us that while Marina and I were inside the restroom, she saw a young guy get out of that same car. Not older, no beard, black t-shirt, short hair, clapping his hands and calling for the dog like he was trying to hype it up. And she was dead serious when she said it, like there was no uncertainty, no maybe, just certainty. We all stared at each other because here's the thing. We all agreed there was only ever one person connected to that car, one person calling for that dog, but somehow, not the same person. And then Marina said something she hadn't said earlier, and it made it worse. She goes, "Also, the van was gone when we came out." I swear to you, I still felt like I could hear music as we walked back to the car, like it lingered in the air. But Marina insisted the van wasn't there anymore, and the sound had stopped completely. So now we're sitting in a hotel room trying to make normal sense out of a rest stop where a dog was there, then wasn't. A car was there, then wasn't. The only person around somehow looked completely different depending on who was watching, and a van with loud music vanished in a gap of seconds, all in bright sunlight. No fog, no darkness, no maybe we were tired. Just a weird, clean slice of daylight where reality didn't line up. And the part I can't stop thinking about is how Otis reacted. Because people can rationalize almost anything, but dogs don't do that. They just respond. And he responded like something in that place was wrong. Okay, so this happens to me all the time, like daily. But let me just tell you about this week, because it's such a perfect little highlight reel of the universe going, "Oh, you thought you were safe? Cute." So the other morning, I'm in this ridiculously good mood over something so small. I'm thinking about my tea, just a basic black tea, nothing fancy, made in this random winter-themed paper cup I grabbed from the cabinet. And I'm weirdly excited, like genuinely excited. I'm standing there thinking, why am I this happy about tea? But I'm not questioning it because, honestly, a good morning is a good morning. I get to the car, and of course the lid doesn't fit the cup. Of course it doesn't. And I'm like, no worries, babe, I came prepared. I have a backup tumbler in the passenger seat, because I'm learning, I'm adapting, I'm thriving. And the universe is like, love that for you. 1 minute later, my cup develops this steady leak that turns my cup holder into a tiny, sad bathtub. Just quietly, persistently, like it's doing it on purpose. Later that same morning, I'm feeling cheerful again because I found leftover mango in the fridge. Perfectly ripe, sweet like candy. And I'm like, yes, I'm going to freeze this for smoothies. I pop it into a freezer container, snap the lid on, feel all accomplished, and literally have this happy little thought like, yum, future me is going to be so grateful. I open the freezer again maybe 20 seconds later and, tell me why, the container launches itself out like it's been waiting for me. It hits the floor and shatters, like it's glass. Pieces everywhere. Mango chunks skidding across the tile like my life is a cartoon. And the thing is, I still had an amazing day. Like, truly. One of my best in a while. I picked up the kids, and we went to the store for exactly one thing. Protein powder. That's it. In and out. I'm feeling productive and unstoppable. We get home, I open it, and there's a rip in the inner seal. And I just stare at it for a second like, okay, fine. I set it aside for a return. No drama. I'm still riding the high of being capable. Then I get into this cleaning and cooking mode that only happens once in a blue moon, and when it does, I feel like a superhero. I decide to make a freezer stash, pancakes and waffles for the week, and somehow I'm doing it all at once like I have 8 arms. I've got 2 pans going, the waffle iron going, batter here, batter there, flipping, pouring, stacking, like I'm running a breakfast restaurant. And it's going so well. I'm moving fast, I'm organized, I'm not overwhelmed. I'm honestly impressed with myself. And I have this thought, this tiny, innocent thought, like, wow, I am absolutely crushing it. I feel like an octopus right now. And immediately, one of the kids yells, "Mom, the toilet is backing up." Of course it is, naturally. So now we're dealing with that. It's annoying, but whatever. We survive. Kids go to bed. I shut down the kitchen. I'm tired but proud. Normally I do this quick little check into the garage before I lock up, but that night I didn't. I just locked the door and head upstairs feeling so satisfied, like I did so much today. The toilet can be tomorrow. The protein powder return can be later. We're fine. We don't even need groceries because I totally handled everything. Next morning, I wake up early to make lunches. I go into the garage to grab something from the fridge out there and the garage is lit up, bright, like a spotlight. And inside are the groceries we got from Costco. Thankfully, I had frozen most of the meat, except the sausage pack I was saving for breakfast. And all the dairy was done, like, fully lost. And I just stood there in silence, staring into that fridge like it was personally mocking me. Because this is the pattern. I will think something, anything, and within seconds the opposite happens. It's like the universe is waiting for me to have even a flicker of confidence, so it can kick my ankle out from under me. I told my husband that morning, I swear I'm jinxed, or haunted, or I'm accidentally a witch who keeps casting spells on herself. And I'm laughing, but I'm also not joking, because I've always been sensitive. Since I was little, I've had weird experiences, paranormal-ish stuff, that feeling like you know something before it happens. And sometimes I wonder if I'm predicting things, but in the most unhelpful way possible. Like I'll think, okay, don't turn left or you'll knock the sponge into the sink. So I turn right instead, and somehow the sponge still flies out like it got launched, and it lands right in front of my feet like, nice try. And it's driving me nuts because now I don't even want to think things. I don't want to say them out loud. I'll literally stop myself mid-thought like, nope, don't jinx it, don't summon it, don't invite it. It honestly feels like the universe is a snooty, jealous older sister who can't stand seeing me content. So it's like, oh, you're proud of yourself? That's adorable. Here's a flooded cup holder. Growing up, I used to think things and then they'd happen days later, weeks later, months later. Now it's like the universe downs a drink, cracks its knuckles, and responds in real time. So I don't know. Is it coincidences? Is it anxiety? Is it pattern recognition? Is it me being overly tuned in? Or is something else going on? I just know I'm tired of thinking, yay, I'm having a good day, and watching the universe immediately reach for the chaos button. Hey, thanks for being here with me. I've never really known how to tell this story out loud, but I'm going to try. Like I'm sitting across from you, and you've got time, and I can finally breathe through it. A couple years ago, back when I was about 30, I hit a point where my mind wasn't a safe place to live in anymore. I tried to hurt myself. It's hard to even say that sentence without my throat tightening. I ended up in the ER, and after that, everything came back in fragments, like broken glass you're afraid to pick up. The first clear thing I remember is flashing lights and confusion. Someone in uniform trying to calm me down, trying to get something dangerous out of my hands. It all felt unreal, like my body was there but my spirit was floating above it, watching. After that, things got complicated. I spent a short time in a psychiatric unit, and then I landed in a holding facility. I'm not going to dig into every reason I got to that point. Just know this. Life had gotten heavy in a way I didn't know how to carry. I was exhausted from being myself. The first few days inside were the worst. Not because of the place itself, though it wasn't gentle, but because I was trapped with my own thoughts. I kept circling the same dark question. How do I make this stop? They knew I was at risk too. Guards kept checking in, the door slot opening every so often, that quick look, that quick question. It was like being watched and still feeling completely alone at the same time. Then the third night came. There was a storm. You could hear it in the building. Wind worrying at the corners, rain hitting metal like handfuls of gravel. I was on the top bunk, and near my head there was this window that didn't seal right. Cold air poured in like it had somewhere to be. I was shivering so hard my teeth ached. And I remember thinking, so clearly, I can't do this. I can't do one more minute of being me. I tried to shift around, pulling my thin blanket up, turning on my side. And as I closed my eyes, this is where it gets strange. My whole vision went white. Not like a light bulb or a flash, more like being inside a soft brightness. And in that brightness, I saw something that looked like a cushion or a veil, silky, pearly, moving as if it was floating in water. It had that shimmering color you see on seashells. Draped over it were these delicate silver threads all woven together, and every so often there were little stones set into them, like tiny drops of emerald, ruby, and crystal catching the light. It was rotating slowly, like it had its own calm gravity. And the wild part was, it felt like the light was responding to me, like I was part of it, not just looking at it. I opened my eyes fast, like, okay, what was that? And in the spot where that glow had been, there was just a plastic bag caught in the bars. The wind kept tugging at it, stretching it into different shapes. For a second, it looked like a figure with open arms. Now, I'm not a religious person. I'm not here to preach anything to you. But I've always been open-minded, and in that moment, I just stared. My brain tried to file it away as coincidence, as stress, as my mind misfiring. I closed my eyes again, and it was still there. But this time, it wasn't only light. This time it felt present. like something had leaned close. And the cold, listen to me, the cold actually left. Not gradually, not I calmed down a bit. It left, like somebody had wrapped warmth around my ribs from the inside. I felt heat, real heat, spreading through me. And with it came this sensation I don't have better words for. It wasn't happiness. It wasn't relief. It was love. But not the kind people argue about or bargain for. Not the kind that comes with conditions or history or debt. It was so pure it made me realize I'd never fully felt it before. The only comparison I've ever been able to come up with is this. Imagine someone who's been blind their entire life and suddenly, they can see. Not just shapes, colors, depth, faces, the whole world. That's what it felt like in my chest and my soul, like a missing sense turning on. And it happened fast, maybe 20 seconds total from start to finish. But in those seconds, something in me rearranged. Then it vanished. I opened my eyes again, and the bag was still snagged there, now twisted into some other random shape, just plastic and wind. The storm kept raging like nothing extraordinary had happened. The room was the same. The bunk was the same. My life was still a mess. But I wasn't the same. Because here's what changed. Before that night, I carried so much anger. I'm talking about the kind of anger that feels like it's keeping you alive, like it's the only thing that makes you strong. I held grudges like they were shields. I was always eye for an eye. I'd rehearse old betrayals like they were scripture. After that night, it was like I suddenly understood people. Not in an excusing way, not in a naive way, but in a deeper way. Like I could see how pain travels through families and strangers and generations, how people do terrible things while thinking they're surviving. And I forgave. Not because anyone deserved it, because I finally understood what forgiveness is. It's not saying what happened was okay. It's deciding you're not going to keep bleeding for it. Weeks later, after I got out, I was sitting with my mom, her name is Marisol, and I had so much explaining to do. She'd been terrified. She's always been the spiritual one between us, the kind of person who keeps a little candle and a small image on the dresser. And she told me something I still think about all the time. She said that the night of the storm, she woke up early, saw the rain, and felt this panic rise in her. She started crying and praying, really praying, asking the lady, as she called her, to protect me and give me strength. So what was it? Was it my mind trying to save itself? Was it some strange thread between a mother and her child? Was it the Virgin Mary? Something else? Something I don't have language for? I honestly don't know. But I know what it did. Those seconds didn't magically fix my life. They didn't erase consequences. They didn't make everything easy. But they turned me around. They gave me a direction I didn't have. Forward. And whenever the world gets loud again, whenever my thoughts start trying to drag me back into that old darkness, I remember that warmth. I remember that love that didn't ask me to earn it. So yeah, I don't know what she was, but I still call her her because that's how it felt. And I still believe, somewhere deep down, that I'm not alone in this life, even when it feels like I am. And if you're listening to me and you're in a place where you don't feel safe with your own thoughts, please don't carry it by yourself. Tell someone. Reach out. You deserve help that's real and human, right in the room with you. So, this happens to me daily. And this week was basically the universe saying, "Oh, you thought you were having a nice moment? Cute." Let me start with Monday morning. I'm standing there feeling weirdly, genuinely excited about my tea. Like, giddy. It was just a plain black tea, nothing fancy, sitting in one of those disposable winter-themed cups with snowflakes on it. And I'm smiling like I've won an award for having a good morning. And then my brain goes, this is nice. Today's gonna be smooth. I walk to the car, and the lid doesn't fit the cup. I'm like, no worries, I'm ready, because I've got my backup plan. A little cooling down tea situation, right? I'm prepared. I'm adaptable. I'm thriving. And the universe goes 1 minute later, great, now it's going to leak, slowly, politely, continuously, until it fills your cup holder. Just a gentle little betrayal, a steady drip of chaos. Later that same morning, I'm in the kitchen and I spot leftover mango, so sweet it tastes like candy. And I'm happy again, because my brain is like, oh, freeze this and you'll have smoothie magic later. So I put it in a freezer-safe container. I even check it later like a proud little squirrel. Yep, frozen. Perfect. Back into the freezer it goes. I'm actually feeling accomplished. I'm thinking, yes, look at me, planning ahead, nourishing my future self. And then, like 20 seconds later, I open the freezer and the container just launches out, like it has an attitude. It shoots out, hits the floor, and shatters like it's made of glass, sending frozen mango chunks everywhere. I just stood there blinking like, are we serious? Is someone pranking me? Do I have a ghost with good comedic timing? And here's the part that's extra confusing. I still had an amazing day. Truly, one of the best days I've had in a while. I picked up the kids from school, my daughter Isla and my son Rowan, and we ran to the store for exactly one thing: protein powder. That's it. I'm doing this whole freezer stash thing, pancakes, waffles, all the easy breakfasts, because I'm trying to set future me up for success. We get home, I open it, and there's a rip in the seal. And I'm like, okay, fine, I'll return it. No big deal. Because at this point, I'm practically training for the Olympics of not losing my mind. Then, something possessed me in the best way. I go into full cleaning mode. I'm multitasking like I have 8 arms. I'm cooking 6 things at once: 2 batches of pancakes, 2 batches of waffles, and 2 batches of these Odie pancake things. Everything is running smoothly. Nothing is burning. I'm flipping, stirring, wiping, organizing. I'm moving with purpose. I feel unstoppable. I'm literally thinking, wow, I've never felt so capable. I'm like an octopus. I'm doing it all. And the universe goes, toilet's clogged. Just immediate. Like it heard me getting confident and was like, let's humble her. And honestly, even then I'm like, okay, that happens. It's fine. We deal with it, we get the kids to bed, I shut everything down, and I'm exhausted but proud. Before I go upstairs, I do my usual quick mental checklist. I normally peek into the garage, but that night I don't. I just lock the door and think, look at everything I got done today. The toilet can wait till tomorrow. The return can wait. I don't even need groceries because, listen, I got it done. Next morning, I wake up, go downstairs to make lunches, head into the garage to grab something from the garage fridge, and the garage is glowing because the fridge door is open, not wide open, just enough, like a 1-inch gap, like it's been sitting there all night, whispering, you should have checked. And the Costco groceries I bought? Yeah, most of it is done. Thankfully, I had frozen most of the meat already, except the bacon. So the bacon died for the cause. But all the dairy? Gone. A tragic, expensive puddle of regret. And that's when I'm like, okay, I know coincidences exist. I'm not ignorant. I'm not trying to be dramatic. But I swear to you, I think something, and within seconds, the opposite happens. I even told my husband Elias this morning, dead serious but also half laughing, that I feel jinxed, haunted, or like I'm a witch accidentally casting spells on myself. And the thing is, I am sensitive. Always have been. I've had creepy little paranormal experiences since I was tiny. So now I'm sitting here wondering, is this just me noticing patterns? Or is it something weirder? Because sometimes it feels like I'm not jinxing things. Sometimes it feels like I'm predicting them. Like I'll think, don't go left, you'll bump the sponge. So I turn right instead, like a perfect 90-degree turn away from the sponge. And somehow the sponge still flies over my head and lands right in front of my feet. How is that even possible unless reality is playing games with me? And now I'm at the point where I don't even want to say things out loud, because I'm afraid if I do, it'll happen. So I just keep my thoughts quiet, but it doesn't matter, because it's like thought, immediate opposite. I keep joking that it's the universe proving me wrong, like a snooty, jealous older sister who can't stand seeing me feel happy for 3 seconds. And what's wild is, when I was growing up, it was more delayed. Like I'd think something, and then it would happen days or weeks or months later. Now, it's like the universe took a sip of beer, cracked its knuckles and said, watch this. So, I don't know, does anyone else get this? Like your brain speaks and reality immediately heckles you? And if you do, what am I supposed to look into here? Is it anxiety? Pattern recognition? Some kind of intuition? A mischievous spirit with a flair for timing? Because I'm telling you, it's driving me nuts. Hey, okay, so please be gentle with me here, because I'm honestly not even sure I believe what I'm about to say. I moved into this house a couple months ago, and I've been renovating it basically non-stop. It's an older place, early 1940s, maybe late 1930s, and it's definitely been updated over the years, so it's not like I walked into some creaky, cobwebby horror movie set. It looks normal. It should feel normal. But it doesn't. I've lived in a lot of different places. I'm used to the weird little new house adjustment period. Different noises, different layout, your brain learning what's safe and what's just unfamiliar. Except this is different. It's the first time I've ever felt genuinely uneasy in a home, like the space itself is watching me learn it. The first thing is this sound, this really specific flop noise, like something heavy being pushed through a mail slot and landing on the floor. You know that dull smack paper thud? That exact vibe. Except every time I go to check, there's nothing. No flyer, no envelope, not even a draft moving a loose bit of paper. And here's the part that makes me feel a little ridiculous. The sound doesn't seem to have a fixed location. It kind of moves. If I'm on the stairs, it sounds like it came from the hallway. If I step into the hallway, suddenly it's like it came from the stairs. Like it's always just out of reach, always landing in the next place I'm not. I've tried to recreate it. Doors, floorboards, pipes, the radiator, everything. Nothing matches. And then there's the feeling. I'll just be walking around, holding a paint roller, carrying a box, doing completely normal things, and it hits me. That prickling sensation that someone is standing behind you. Not in a dramatic way, in a quiet, steady way, like eyes on the back of your neck. So I do the logical thing. I turn around. I check rooms. I open cupboards. I prove to myself over and over that there is nobody there. And still, I can't shake it. Sometimes it's strong enough that my body reacts before my brain does. Like I'll get this sudden shiver, full body, involuntary. Or that heavy pressure behind your eyes, the kind you get right before tears show up. Except I'm not sad. Nothing happened. I'm not even in a mood. It's just this weird physical response, like my system is bracing for something it can't explain. And the cold. God, the cold is unreal. I've stayed in places with terrible insulation, old windows, drafty everything. I'm not precious about it. Normally, I'm a put on a hoodie and get on with it person. But this house is different. Even on mild days, it feels like the warmth gets swallowed. The heating works, sure. When I crank it, it heats up. But the second it's off, the chill sinks back in like it was waiting. It's not just winter cold. It's that kind of cold that feels personal, like it's wrapped around the walls. Now, I know what you're probably thinking, because I've said it to myself 100 times. You're spooking yourself. And honestly, that might be true. I love creepy content. Those narrated scary stories, the true accounts, the late-night rabbit holes. I fall asleep to them sometimes. My friend Mr. Ballin is always like, "You're basically inviting your imagination to go wild." And maybe they're right. But then I learned something that messed with me. Behind the house, there's a lake. More like a wide pond, really. And I'd always thought it was just scenic, quiet, the kind of place people walk dogs around. And apparently there's a local story about it. When I first heard it, I rolled my eyes. It sounded too neat, too classic ghost, like something from a cartoon. Pale lady, floating near water, tragic backstory, the usual. But after that, I started noticing how often I avoided looking out toward the lake at night. Not because I saw anything. I haven't. Not once. It's more like, part of me is afraid that the first time I do look, I'm going to see something I can't unsee. And that's where I'm at right now. Stuck between this is just stress and nerves and creepy podcasts, and why does it feel like the house knows when I'm alone? So tell me, what would you do? Because I'm trying to be rational. I'm trying to laugh at myself, but I'm also standing in this freshly renovated hallway, hearing that soft flop sound again, and feeling like I'm sharing the space with something patient. And I don't know if I'm scaring myself, or if I'm finally paying attention. So, back when I was in university, I lived in this little private dorm that was run by nuns. It wasn't fancy, but it was cheap, safe, and close enough to campus that I could roll out of bed and be in class in 10 minutes. The building was simple. 2 boarding floors, maybe a dozen girls on each one, and then the ground floor where the 2 sisters lived. I stayed on the top floor, second level, down a narrow hallway that always smelled faintly like floor polish and laundry detergent. There was a strict curfew, 9 p.m., except for one night a month when they pushed it to midnight so everyone could go out and cut loose. Most of the girls treated it like a mini holiday. Clubs, parties, late-night food, the whole thing. Me? I was not that girl. I had a mountain of coursework and 0 interest in drinking or being out late, so I stayed behind with my laptop and a stack of notes, feeling pretty smug about my productivity. That night, right around 9, I'm sitting in my room with the door locked, deep in a project, when I hear this awful sound. Metal chairs scraping hard against the dining room floor. Not one chair, a bunch of them. Like someone was dragging chairs back and forth for no reason at all. It goes on long enough that I finally set my pen down and just listen. 30 seconds, maybe more. No voices, no laughter, just that relentless scraping. So I get up, open my door, and peek out into the dining area. Pitch dark, empty, no one. I flip on the light, expecting to catch someone messing around, or maybe a girl sneaking a late snack. But the room looks normal. Chairs tucked in neatly, tables exactly where they always were, nothing out of place. It's the kind of normal that makes you feel silly for being nervous. I tell myself it's probably just pipes or the building settling. Old buildings make weird noises, right? And I go back to my room, shut the door, and try to focus. And then it starts again. Same scraping, same intensity. This time I'm faster. I open my door almost immediately, like I'm going to catch the sound in the act. And the second I step out, it stops. Just gone. Like someone hit mute. I walk over, look around again. Still nothing. Still neat. Still empty. Now I'm officially unsettled. I knew most of the girls had left earlier. I'd seen them heading out in groups, fixing their hair in the hallway mirror, laughing, calling out quick goodbyes. But I still went up and down the second floor to check. Every door was closed. Quiet. Except for one other girl who had stayed behind to study too. Her name was Maria, sweet, shy, always polite. I knock softly and ask if she's been moving chairs around or heard anything weird. She just stares at me, genuinely confused, and says, "What chairs?" Not in a joking way, not teasing. She looked like I'd asked her if the ceiling was on fire. When I described the noise, her face changed. Like she didn't want to believe me, but something in her was connecting dots she didn't like. She admitted she hadn't heard a thing, but she asked if I could stay with her for a little while anyway. Like she suddenly didn't want to be alone. So I did. We sat in the hallway for a bit, whispering about assignments, pretending everything was normal, both of us listening too hard to every tiny creak. Eventually, she went back into her room, and I returned to mine. I tried to laugh it off. I even managed to get a few solid hours of work done. Then midnight came. I hear 3 knocks on my door. I figure, okay, the girls are back. Someone needs something. Maybe they lost their key or want to borrow a charger. I open the door. No one. The hallway is dark. Every other door is shut. No footsteps. No giggling. No distant chatter drifting up from the stairs. Just silence. I stand there for a second, kind of holding my breath, then close the door and go back to my desk because, honestly, I had deadlines and I didn't want to spiral. A little while later, 3 knocks again. Same pattern. Same calm, intentional rhythm. This time I call out, "Yeah?" Nothing. I open the door again. Still no one. Now I'm irritated and nervous at the same time because the most logical explanation is that someone is messing with me. But the hallway is empty, and I don't hear anyone running away, and the building is quiet in that heavy, late-night way. So I lock the door. And of course, because life loves timing, the 3 knocks come again. Knock, knock, knock. I sit frozen for a moment, then I lean close to the door and say, "Who is it?" No answer, not even a breath. I don't open it this time. I just put my headphones on, even though I wasn't really listening to anything. I just wanted a barrier between me and whatever was happening outside that door. I stayed in my room the rest of the night. No bathroom trips, no hallway checks, nothing. I just waited for morning like it was a finish line. A few hours later, I started getting this awful stomach pain, sharp and rolling, the kind that makes you feel nauseous and clammy. I remember thinking, great, as if I needed one more thing. But I was too scared to step out into the hallway, so I curled up in bed and tried to breathe through it until I fell asleep. After that night, nothing happened again. But a few days later, something did change. Our dorm had a tiny chapel, and once a week a priest would come for a short service. That part was normal. What wasn't normal was what happened afterward. The sisters invited him upstairs, like all the way up to the boarding floors. I'd lived there over a year by then, and I had never seen that happen. Not once. I didn't know what he did up there. I was on my way out to class, and I didn't want to sound dramatic or superstitious, so I didn't ask. I just watched him pass by with the sisters, calm as could be, like this was just another item on the schedule. And that was it. No more chair scraping, no more knocking, no more weird, heavy silence pressing against my door. I stayed in that dorm for the rest of my time in university, years, and nothing like that ever happened to me again. But I still remember how it felt in that hallway at midnight, staring into the dark, realizing there was no one there, and knowing, deep in my stomach, that something had still knocked anyway. So I was probably about 7, maybe 8 when this happened. Little enough that bedtime still felt like a whole event. And honestly, nights were rough for me back then. I was terrified of the dark in a way that wasn't just, I don't like it, but like, my whole body would brace for something bad the second the lights went out. I'd lie there with this heavy, sinking dread because sleep didn't feel safe. Part of it was the darkness itself, but part of it was my dreams. Super vivid, hyper-real dreams that felt like they followed me even after I opened my eyes. Sometimes I'd wake up and just know something was wrong, even if nothing looked wrong yet. And I'd be too scared to even sit up and turn on a little lamp, because what if the moment I moved, I'd see something I wasn't supposed to see? My room had a setup I can still picture perfectly. On my left was the window. At night, I wouldn't even glance in that direction, like the glass could show me something looking back. The blinds stayed shut every night, no exceptions. On my right was this big desk, kind of old and heavy looking, with shelves above it. My mom kept a few decorations up there, including some dolls. And there was one in particular that made my stomach twist every time I remembered it existed. It was this little girl doll sitting on a tiny wooden rocking horse. The doll had pale blonde hair in 2 neat pigtails, tied off with little ribbons, and she wore this old-fashioned dress, dark green, like something out of a history book. It looked like it belonged in another century. I hated it. Not because it was ugly or broken or anything. It was just too lifelike. I was always scared that I'd look up and catch it rocking, just slightly, or see its head turned when it hadn't been turned before. And the creepy part is, that doll wasn't just a random toy. It had been a gift from my mom's aunt, Aunt Darlene, who'd passed away not long before that. So it already had this weird, heavy feeling attached to it, even if nobody said it out loud. Anyway, I don't remember falling asleep. I just remember waking up. It was the middle of the night, and I snapped awake like someone had yanked me up out of a dream. My heart was already going, already panicked, like it knew something before my brain did. I was lying flat on my back, staring into the darkness. I tried to do the normal kid thing, like, okay, calm down, roll over, get comfortable, go back to sleep. So I slowly turned onto my left side, and the second I turned, there was a girl standing right next to my bed. Not a kid-sized shape, not a shadow. A life-size girl, right there, so close I could have reached out and touched her. And she looked exactly like the doll. Same hairstyle, same old-fashioned dress, same small, rigid posture. She wasn't moving, just standing there, watching me like she'd been there the whole time and I'd just finally noticed. There was this strange light behind her, like a dull yellow glow seeping through the blinds, even though my blinds were shut. It didn't make sense, but it was enough to backlight her. Her whole front was in shadow, so I couldn't see her face at all. Just the outline of her head, the pigtails, the shape of the dress, the rocking horse doll silhouette, but full-sized. And I swear to you, the fear that hit me was like my blood turned to ice, like my body stopped being mine. I didn't scream. I didn't even breathe right. I just reacted. I yanked the blanket over my head as fast as I could, like if I couldn't see her, she couldn't finish whatever she came to do. That was the thought. Not a clear sentence, just this animal feeling. Don't look, don't move, don't let it know you're here. So I stayed like that. Eventually, I could tell morning was coming. Not because I saw light, but because the air felt different. The silence felt different. And when I finally worked up the courage to lower the blanket, there was nothing there. No girl, no glow, no sign anything had ever happened. The room looked exactly the same. Desk, shelves, the dolls all sitting where they always sat. But I didn't feel relieved. I felt violated, like my room had betrayed me. And I kept that to myself for a long time. Years. Because how do you even say it out loud without someone brushing it off or laughing, or, maybe worse, looking worried? Now that I'm older, I can look back and connect the dots. I'm pretty sure I was dealing with sleep paralysis starting really young, before I even had words for it. And I also get those weird in-between hallucinations sometimes. The ones that happen when you're falling asleep or just waking up. The brain sort of half dreaming, half awake, blending reality with something else. As a kid and teenager, it was always the same kind of theme. Dark shapes in corners, something on the ceiling, the sense of a presence, sometimes even figures around the bed. And the worst part wasn't just seeing things, it was being trapped. Like your body won't listen to you, like you're screaming internally but nothing comes out. I barely get the paralysis itself anymore, thankfully. These days, if anything, I'll get those awful, false wake-ups where you think you've gotten up and escaped, and then you realize you're still in bed, still stuck, and it loops again. It's exhausting. But that night, back when I was little, I didn't know any of that. I only knew what I saw. A life-size version of that rocking horse doll, standing beside my bed in the dark, watching me. And even now, part of me still wonders, was it only my brain misfiring in that half-awake state? Or was it something that chose the shape I'd fear the most, because it knew exactly what would make me hide? So, I bought this place in September of 2018. A big, creaky, Victorian-ish farmhouse that was built back in 1919. The kind of house that looks like it's holding its breath half the time, you know? Beautiful, but always settling. Always making little noises, and I'm not exaggerating when I say this. About 10 days after I moved in, I had my first real moment. I was sitting at my desk, just scrolling on my laptop, totally alone in the house. And I felt a hand rest on my right shoulder. Not a brush, not my shirt shifting. A hand, heavy enough that my body reacted before my brain even caught up. I spun around like, what the? And there was nobody there. Just empty space. Quiet. The house doing that thing old houses do, where it feels like it's listening back. After that, it was smaller stuff for a while. A bedroom door I know I latched would be cracked open in the middle of the night. A kitchen cabinet would be hanging open like someone forgot to close it. And honestly, I told myself all the reasonable things. Old hinges, uneven floors, wood expanding and contracting. Anything to make it feel normal. But the part that didn't feel normal was the feeling. Especially upstairs. If I went to the second floor alone, there were times I'd get this steady, prickly sense of being watched. Like I'd stepped into someone else's space, and they were waiting to see what I'd do. And the basement had this little coal storage room, more like a tight, unfinished pocket off to the side. And every time I even stood near it, my stomach would drop. Like my body was warning me, no, don't go in there. Not fear exactly, more like a deep, sour, you shouldn't be here. Things didn't really ramp up until 2020 when my partner, who's now my wife, moved in. Her name's Mara, and Mara is the kind of person who notices everything. Not long after she moved in, she started telling me she could hear voices in the basement. Two people, a man and a woman, talking like they were having a normal conversation. Not yelling, not whispering dramatically, just talking. Like the basement was a living room, and they were down there keeping each other company. Then she started seeing movement out of the corner of her eye, like someone stepping out of a doorway or crossing a hall. And when she'd turn her head, nothing. And here's the part that got under my skin. One night, kind of casually, she admitted she suspected the house had something going on before she even moved in. Turns out, she'd known people who knew the previous owners, and apparently the owner's kids used to talk about Granddad, like he was just around, like he was another member of the household. They'd say they played with him, and they'd laugh about how he always talked about treasure hidden upstairs, like there was something tucked away in the walls. I remember Mara telling me that and kind of smiling, trying to keep it light. But I also remember thinking, okay, so it's not just me losing it. And what's strange is, not everything about it has felt malicious. Some of it has been weirdly helpful. Mara has this habit, she used to anyway, of falling asleep on the couch and waking up with her back all twisted up. One day she told me, I can't keep doing that, I'm wrecking myself. And after that, a few different times when she dozed off out there, she got shaken awake. Not gently, not like a dream jolt, like someone actually put hands on her and went, hey, get up. And the timing, it was only a couple minutes after my alarm should have gone off. Like somebody noticed. Like somebody was like, you're late. That was the first time I heard them clearly enough to know it wasn't pipes or the TV or my imagination. There have been other moments too, moments that make your skin go tight. One night we watched Mara's purse get launched off this little shelf in the dining room. And I mean launched. It didn't just slip and fall. It had this upward arc to it, like someone flicked it up and over, and it went sailing across the room before it hit the floor. We both just stared at it like, did you see? Yeah, I saw it. Another time, I was sitting by the front door putting my boots on, and I heard footsteps coming down the stairs. Clear as day. Heavy enough to make the boards talk. I looked up expecting to see Mara. Nobody. Not on the stairs, not at the landing, not anywhere. Mara hears those footsteps more than I do. She's told me sometimes, in bed, she'll feel someone lean in, like a presence hovering close, checking on us. And she'll just say, softly, we're okay. And then she'll feel it pull back, and she'll hear the steps go back down. Like whoever it is just making sure we're safe. And then, this is where it gets even stranger. Around late 2021, we started seeing a cat. But not a real cat. It was this gray-black blur at first, always in the corner of my eye. I'd think, oh, it's the cat. And I'd turn my head and there'd be nothing. But Mara saw it more clearly. She swears she saw it fully sprawled out near the hallway like it owned the place. A couple of times, lying in bed, I felt something jump up onto the mattress and press against my side, like an animal curling up. I even reached down, half asleep, to pet it, expecting fur, warmth, that familiar little shift of a body breathing. Nothing. Just air. Mara told me when that happens, she feels the temperature drop on that side of the bed, like cold spilling across the sheets. And once she said she could feel it purring. Not with sound exactly, but with that vibration you feel through a mattress when a cat settles in and gets comfortable. And here's the weirdest detail. Our TV sits on a dresser, and sometimes the screen will start to sway, just slightly, like something is rubbing behind it. Like an animal slipping back there the way cats do, brushing and bumping and making things wobble. Since that cat showed up, since the ghost cat, I guess, I don't get that heavy, negative feeling as often. The house still has moments. Every now and then you'll walk into a room and the air will feel off, like you walked in mid-sentence and the conversation stopped. But it's different now. Less sharp, less hostile. And I don't know how to explain that without sounding completely ridiculous. But sometimes it honestly feels like the cat changed the mood of the whole place. Like it softened something. Like whatever tension used to sit in the corners got chased out. The way cats somehow make a home feel lived in just by existing in it. So yeah, that's where we're at. We live in a beautiful old house with creaky floors, a basement that still makes me cautious, two quiet voices that seem to keep their distance, and a cat we can't prove exists, except for the way the bed dips, the air goes cold, and the whole place feels a little calmer when it's around. Okay, so I don't really know how to tell this without sounding like I'm trying to convince you of something. I'm not. I'm just laying it out the way it happened, because it's been years now, and I swear the house has a personality. Or something in it does. So, quick setup. My place was built in the early 70s, 1972, I think. It's a small one-story bungalow in a quiet neighborhood of Jensen Beach, Florida. 2 bedrooms, 2 baths, a little over 1,200 square feet. Nothing fancy. I'm the 4th owner. I live alone, and my fiancée, Maya. She's overseas right now, so it's just me and the dogless silence most nights. The house was renovated right before I bought it. Fresh paint, new floors, the whole move-in ready thing. It had been a rental at some point too, which always makes you wonder how many different lives have been lived in the same rooms, you know? Anyway, about 3 weeks after I moved in, the first weird thing happened. Every night I close my bedroom door. Not slam it, not dramatize it, just close it. Normal. But once in a while, I'd wake up in the morning and the door would be stuck. Not like swollen wood stuck, like latched stuck. Like the lock had been turned just enough that I couldn't open it without forcing it. It doesn't happen as much anymore, but it used to freak me out because, I live alone. Who's locking me in my room? Then about 6 months after moving in, it started doing this thing with the door to the garage. That's my main exit. I never lock it because the garage itself is secure and my washer and dryer are out there. But sometimes I'd open the door to step through, and the second I crossed the threshold, bam! The door would slam back like it was offended I was leaving. And when I'd turn around, the deadbolt would be fully extended, smacking into the door frame like somebody had thrown it out on purpose. I'm telling you, I'd just stand there in the garage, staring at it, thinking, how? Because I didn't touch the deadbolt. And I'm not the kind of person who sleepwalks and locks doors for fun. Then there's the attic. The attic is basically useless. Super low, all trusses, barely any room to move. But a few times a year, 3 or 4 maybe, I'll hear it. It's this rhythm, like footsteps but muted, like thump, 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 moving across the ceiling from one end of the house to the other. And it's not quick like a squirrel. It sounds deliberate, like someone taking their time, pacing, up and down the length of the house. I've climbed up there with a flashlight before, and there's never anything. Just insulation, beams, and that heavy don't stay up here too long feeling. Now, more recently, like the last month or so, I started noticing something at my bay window in the living room. It's frosted glass, so you can't really see clearly outside, but you catch movement. People walk their dogs on my street all the time. Joggers, kids on scooters, the usual. Except sometimes I'll see a shadow sweep past the window, human-shaped, like a person walking by, and I'll immediately get up to look because I'm nosy like that. And I swear to you, most times, there's no one there. Not, they already passed. I mean, the street is empty like it got wiped clean. One time there was someone, a guy walking a dog, and I felt relieved like, okay, I'm not losing it. But the rest of the time? Nothing. And here's where it gets a lot. I plugged them in around dusk on the first night. I remember checking my phone while I did it because I was proud of myself. Like, look at me, festive. That night, at exactly 7 p.m., one candle turned on, then another, then another. By 7:01, they were all on. I'm not exaggerating. It was like they were taking attendance. And then in the morning, exactly 6 a.m., one would click off, then another, then another. By 6:01, they were all off. Every night, every morning, like clockwork. I got so creeped out I took one apart. I'm not an electrician, but I expected to find some obvious little timer component hidden inside. There was nothing. Just a bulb, wiring, the plug, basic parts. No smart features. No reason they should have been doing that. Last Christmas, I didn't even put them out. I know that sounds ridiculous, but I just didn't want to invite that back. Now, this next part is the one that really messes with me because it's physical. Ever since I moved in, off and on, my bed will shake at night while I'm in it. Not like an earthquake, not violent, just side to side, maybe half an inch. But it's instantly recognizable because it feels exactly like when a kid grabs the mattress and shakes it to wake you up. Just enough movement to be unmistakable. Sometimes it lasts 30 seconds. Sometimes it lasts 3 or 4 minutes. And here's the weirdest detail. It happens more when I run my little rain sound machine, like white noise. If I have the TV on, it almost never happens. But the rain machine? That's when it shows up, like it prefers the dark and the cover of sound. Then, last year, 2025, it escalated. This happened 3 times, and every time it was the same. I sleep on my side because my back is messed up from old injuries, usually my right side. And I'll feel the mattress dip behind my legs, like something has just sat down. Not a full person, more like a concentrated weight. Like someone placed a heavy medicine ball on the bed, maybe 20 pounds or so. My legs get this hollow space under them because the mattress is pushed down, and then, this is the part that makes my skin crawl. My legs go cold. Not, I kicked off the blanket cold. Like the warmth gets pulled out of them. It lasts a few minutes, and then it's gone, like nothing happened. And then, once. Only once. Mid-December 2025, around 9 p.m. I had the rain machine on. A couple minutes in, the bed started doing the familiar shake, side to side, that wake-up motion. Then the weight pressed down behind my legs. My legs went cold. And then I heard it. A growl. Low, throaty, like a dog warning you. It only lasted a second or two, so quick that if I'd coughed, I might have missed it. But I didn't miss it. I felt it in my chest more than my ears. I turned on every light in the house. I walked through every room like I was doing a security check, even though I didn't really believe I'd find anything. I checked the closets. I checked the garage door. I stood in the hallway listening to the silence like it might explain itself. And then I slept on the couch, lights on, because I just couldn't climb back into that bed like everything was normal. Hello, friends. It's us again, the Paranormal M team. We truly love what we do, and we're incredibly grateful for all your love and support, and for sharing so many of your supernatural experiences with us. Thank you so much. We hope our stories and paranormal experiences help you fall asleep more easily and enjoy a great night's rest. It means a lot to us to know we're keeping you company. So don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Now, let's get started. So this happened years ago, early 90s. My spouse, Mara, and I rented this sweet little house in Brookside, Kansas City. We didn't deal with the owner directly. Everything went through this attorney, Mr. Halverson, because the owner was an older woman who'd moved back to her hometown in eastern Nebraska after her husband died. Anyway, one night I'm home alone, doing something completely normal. Folding towels, being an adult, pretending I have my life together. I'm upstairs in this narrow hallway, standing at a linen closet that's directly across from the bathroom. The kind of hallway where the lights always feel a little too dim, even when they're on. I'm reaching into the closet, stacking towels, and out of nowhere I get that feeling. You know the one. That cold little crawl up your back that says, someone's behind you. I freeze with my arms full of towels, and I can almost feel the eyes on me. I slowly turn around, and I swear, for a split second I see an elderly man standing there. Not solid like a normal person, more like a presence shaped like a person. Pale, still, watching me like I'd interrupted him. My stomach dropped so fast I thought I might actually pass out. And then, nothing. The hallway's empty. Just me and my ridiculous towels and my heart trying to escape through my throat. I didn't tell Mara. I know. But I didn't want her laughing at me. And honestly, I didn't want to plant that image in her head and scare her. So I kept it to myself and tried to act normal, like I hadn't just met the world's creepiest invisible neighbor. A couple months go by. It's a Sunday afternoon. I'm downstairs watching football, half asleep on the couch, and Mara's upstairs putting towels away in that same linen closet. And then I hear her scream. Not like a little surprised yelp, a real, full-body scream. She comes running down the stairs so fast she nearly misses the last step. She's shaking. Her face is white. I sit up like, what happened? What's wrong? And she tells me she was putting towels away, got this horrible feeling that she was being watched, turned around, and thought she saw an old man standing in the hallway. And when she said it, I felt my blood go cold, because it was exactly what happened to me. So I'm holding her there in the living room, trying to calm her down, and I finally tell her my story. How I'd felt it too, how I'd seen him too, and how I'd kept it quiet because I didn't want her to laugh or get freaked out. Mara just stared at me like, "You've been sitting on that?" After that, it was like the house had a personality. Nothing flying off shelves, no dramatic movie stuff, just this steady, uncomfortable feeling sometimes. Like the place didn't quite want you there. A little later, I dropped off the rent check at Mr. Halverson's office, and I asked him, casually, like I wasn't about to sound insane, if he knew how the owner's husband had passed. He kind of paused, then said the husband had had a massive heart attack, right there in the home. Paramedics came, but he was already gone. Then he asks me why I wanted to know, and I couldn't bring myself to tell the whole story. I said something vague, like I'd had this odd sense that the man had died there. And I left it at that, because what else do you say without sounding like you've been licking batteries? But then things got worse in a way that had nothing to do with ghosts. And they're gone. We just stood there, stunned, watching taillights disappear. The insurance claim ended up around $18,000, which was a lot of money back then. And here's the part that still makes me mad. After the settlement, the insurance company canceled our policy. Our agent, Darlene, told us the only thing she was allowed to say was, "You need to move." She wouldn't explain, just kept repeating it like she was reading off a script. 4 months later, this is the kicker. We go to bed early one night. All the lights are off, the house is quiet, and we're dead asleep. And we wake up to someone trying to break in through the same entry point as before. You could hear it, this awful, deliberate sound, like somebody testing the world. Mara and I bolt upright, flipping on lights, making noise, and whatever it was, it stops. Just like that. Like they didn't want to fight. They wanted an easy house. At that point, we went back to Mr. Halverson and demanded improvements. Better locks, reinforced doors, brighter outdoor lighting, security system, the whole thing. We got estimates, about $2,700, and we even offered to split the cost. He talked to the owner. They refused. They said we were welcome to pay for it ourselves, which, no. We weren't going to pour thousands into someone else's property just so we could sleep at night. So we terminated the lease and moved out. The house rented again quickly. Cute place, lovely neighborhood, just a little too close to an area where people apparently felt comfortable treating homes like shopping malls. We were lucky. We only lost the deposit. And then, about 9 months after we left, I get this phone call one evening. A woman, her name was Rachel, asks if I used to live at our old address. I'm like, yeah? Why? And she explains that some mail with my name had shown up even after forwarding, and she'd looked me up because I was the only match in the Kansas City phone book. Then she says, I know this is strange, but I needed to talk to someone who lived there before. Rachel tells me she and her roommate, another young attorney, had rented the place after us, and they'd been robbed 3 times in 9 months. 3. They'd gotten into it with Mr. Halverson about safety upgrades, and during one of those arguments he accidentally let something slip. Something like, "This sounds exactly like what the previous tenants asked for." That's when she started digging until she found me. And then, almost like an afterthought, she goes, "Also, can I ask you something weird?" I'm already bracing myself. She says, "Did you ever feel creeped out in that house? Like you were being watched?" And I remember I actually swallowed before I answered. I said, "Watched? Yeah. By who?" And she goes, completely matter of fact, like she's talking about a nosy neighbor. An old creepy guy. And I just sat there on the phone, quiet, because suddenly I could see that upstairs hallway again. The linen closet, the bathroom door, the dim light, and that feeling, like the house had been waiting for you to notice you weren't alone. Hey, so this is a story I meant to tell forever ago, but it only came rushing back to me recently when I was on the phone with my mom, talking about how my great-uncle's Christmas package still hadn't shown up. You know how that goes. One random, ordinary conversation, and suddenly your brain yanks open a dusty drawer you forgot even existed. Anyway, my family has always had these little, "what was that?" moments that sit right on the edge of paranormal. Not constantly, not like some dramatic movie, just enough to make you pause and glance over your shoulder now and then. I don't live in my childhood home anymore. I moved about 6 years ago to a quieter place farther north. Older house, more fields, fewer neighbors. But this story is from back then, from the road I grew up on. Our house sat near a corner. Across the street was our neighbor's house, kind of a weathered brick place, and right by the roadside were two tall pine trees that always looked darker than everything around them at night. Our mailbox was out there too, close enough to the road that car headlights would hit it in this quick, bright sweep as you turned onto our street. And apparently, in those headlights, sometimes, there was a girl. My mom and my uncle both described her the exact same way, even though they'd mentioned it years apart, like it was no big deal, like they were talking about a deer they'd seen or a cat that wandered through the yard. They said she looked young, late teens, maybe early 20s, straight dark hair, shoulder length, and clothes that felt old-fashioned in this really specific way, like a skirt and blouse you'd picture in an old family photo. Not costumey, just dated. She'd be standing near the mailbox, slightly leaning toward the road, as if she was waiting for a car to come from the direction of town. My mom always emphasized this one detail. The girl would lift a hand and tuck her hair behind her ear, like she'd done it 1,000 times. Then she'd fold her arms tight around herself, like she was cold, and stare past the headlights, past the car, like the driver wasn't even there. And the weirdest part? You could only see her in the headlights. Like the dark hid her until that split-second beam lit the pines and the mailbox. And then, once the car passed and the light moved on, she was just gone. Not walking away, not stepping back, just gone, like someone hit stop on a recording. I never saw her, not once, and I always kind of wanted to, just so I could decide how I felt about it with my own eyes. But it was only my mom and my uncle, and I know what you're thinking. Could have been a story, a family spooky tale. But here's the thing, neither of them had the personality for that kind of performance. My mom has had car anxiety since she was a teenager, after a bad accident. She's not the type to suddenly yell, "Stop," in the dark for fun. But my dad told me more than once about nights when she'd snap upright in the passenger seat and demand he slam the brakes because she's there again. And my uncle, let's call him Nate, he wasn't exactly sentimental. He wasn't a theatrical guy. But apparently there were nights he'd come home late, whip the car around, and back halfway into the front yard just to angle the headlights back across the street, trying to see her again by the pines. And what always got me about that is, those nights were often after midnight. No audience, no kids watching. If it was some big prank or attention thing, he was committing to it at the weirdest possible times. What actually gave me chills didn't happen on the road. It happened 2 years ago, in my mom's living room, in broad daylight, with her phone in her hand. There had been a report about an unidentified body found back near our hometown. Badly decomposed, unclaimed, the kind of news story that makes everyone go quiet for a second. My dad has this personal reason he always pays attention to things like that. When he was younger, one of his uncles, my great-uncle, just vanished. No goodbye, no explanation, nothing. Every time remains are found within a couple hours' drive, my dad calls to see if there's any chance it could be him. It never is, but he still checks. So my mom tells him about this new case, and while he's processing it, she starts scrolling. Just curious, pulling up older missing persons cases from the area. I was sitting right there, half watching, half not, until she made this sound. Not a scream, not even a full gasp. More like her breath just dropped out of her. Her phone actually dipped like it got heavy in her hand, and she called for my dad, fast. The tone in her voice made my stomach tighten immediately because I thought, oh my God, she found something about his uncle, or something worse. My dad comes over, and my mom shoves the screen toward him and says, "That's her. That's the girl." My dad's like, "What girl?" And my mom says it again, sharper this time, like she needed him to understand immediately. "That's the one by the mailbox. That's the one we've been seeing." On her screen was a black and white photo, a young woman, dark straight hair, the same kind of clothes, The same face shape my mom had described for years in this casual, unsettling way. The case details said she was 19, from a nearby town, last seen in our hometown in early winter, late 1970s, right around the holidays. And then, found a couple days later, murdered. Multiple stab wounds. I remember staring at that phone and feeling this slow, crawling cold behind my ribs. Not the fun kind of spooky, the ugly kind. The kind that makes you realize the world has teeth. Because if my mom was making this up, then she'd been playing the longest, weirdest game imaginable. Decades of consistent detail. Decades of the same description. Years of reacting the same way in the car. And then a perfectly timed reveal. And she's not that person. She never has been. She can't even pretend she likes a meal if she doesn't. So we all just stood there, sort of stunned. Like we'd accidentally stepped into the overlap between two realities. The family ghost story and a real young woman who had actually lived and actually died, and whose face was still out there in records like a bookmark nobody wanted to find. I'm not going to say her real name. It feels wrong. I looked a little deeper and saw she still has family. Siblings, at least. People who might still think about her every December. But I'll tell you this. Ever since that day, whenever I picture that corner, the pines, the mailbox, the way headlights sweep across the roadside, I don't picture a ghost girl like some campfire story. I picture a real person. And I can't decide what's worse. That my mom and uncle saw her at all, or that they only ever saw her for a second, in passing, like she was still waiting for someone to stop. So, quick bit of context before I drop you into it. For years, we had this cat named Hugo. He showed up in our lives sometime in the late 2000s and made it to that ancient wizard age where the vet basically squints at the chart like, how are you even real? He was old. Somewhere around 18, maybe 20, hard to say. Hugo was also the best mouse hunter I've ever seen, and that's not me being sentimental. He was genuinely talented. The thing is, we didn't do outdoor cats. We lived way too close to a road that felt like it ate animals for breakfast, and I couldn't handle the idea of someone not coming home. So we kept our cats indoors and tried to make their world interesting. Cat trees, toys, window perches, all of it. But we did have a mouse problem, and our compromise was this. The cats could go work in the basement if they wanted. And Hugo? Hugo lived for basement duty. He was vocal too. He had this very specific, I'm requesting basement access sound, and he was smart enough to know doors were opened by pushing the handle down. When he wanted back upstairs, he'd get dramatic, standing on his hind legs, paws hooked over the handle, trying to yank it like a little furry burglar. The handle was stiff, so it took effort, but he'd still try. Now, the basement door was in this short little hallway. Basement door, bathroom door beside it, and then a pantry door a step away. It was one of those tight spaces where sounds bounce weirdly, like everything is closer than it should be. Okay, here's where the story actually starts. It was, I want to say 2014-ish, give or take. I was up late, as usual, somewhere around 2:30 or 3 in the morning, sitting on the couch with the whole house quiet in that heavy, asleep kind of way. And then I hear it, that basement door, rattling. Not a gentle, house-settling noise, not a little tap. It sounded like someone was shaking it, testing it, like, let me in, let me out, let me something. My first reaction was irritation, honestly, because at the time, the cats were being treated for flea and worm stuff, and the basement was the one place we really didn't want them wandering around during that. And I was the only one awake. Everyone else had been asleep for hours. So I stand up, already mid-lecture in my head. I'm walking toward the hall like, Hugo, are you kidding me right now? Who put you down there? I get close enough to reach for the handle, and right before my hand touches it, I hear a little meow. From my left, I turn, and there's Hugo, sitting calmly on a shelf by the bathroom, staring at the basement door like he's watching a show. And I swear to you, that moment did something to my spine. Like every bone went, oh, nope. Because if that wasn't Hugo at the basement door, then what was? We had another cat back then, Junie, but I'd literally just stood up from the couch and Junie had been stretched out right there, dead asleep, not moving. It couldn't have been her. So I turned back to the basement door and I'm trying to tell myself, okay, draft, pipes, mouse, anything normal. And then the handle starts moving. Not the door shaking, the handle. It jiggles up and down, like someone is trying to press it, failing, trying again. And then it gets more aggressive, like it's frustrated. Like something on the other side is learning the mechanics by brute force. And that's when my brain went from investigate to absolutely not. I grabbed the nearest sturdy thing, a wooden chair, and shoved it in front of the door like I was in a low-budget horror movie with a survival instinct. Then I scooped up Hugo, marched to my room, and got in bed with my heart doing kickflips. The rattling stopped maybe a minute after I left, which somehow made it worse, like it had been waiting for an audience. But the handle? No. And then my dad made it so much worse, because when I told him, he goes, very casually, that handle doesn't work like that. If you saw it moving, it was moving on your side. Like, thank you. That's so much scarier. That means it wasn't something trapped in the basement wanting out. It was something up here, with me, that wanted down there. I truly hoped that would be the end of it. It wasn't. A few months later, my mom admitted she'd heard it too. Late at night, the same hallway, the same strange impatience. And after that, when it happened again, Hugo would actually change his little observation spot. He started perching closer to my room, like he had decided the best seat for the basement door's performance was right where I could see it too. Years passed. Life moved on in that way it does. And then, when Hugo got really old, he got sick. He rallied for a while. He improved, but he never fully bounced back. He lost muscle, moved slower, and he stopped hunting. It was like he finally decided he'd done enough work for one lifetime. During that stretch, we got close in a way we hadn't before. He'd always been independent, kind of, I love you from across the room. But in the end, he chose me. He'd come find me, settle near me, lean into my hand like we were making up for time. Eventually, his body just couldn't keep going. We lost him. It wrecked me. When the vet returned him to us, it was in this small, plain urn. Nothing fancy, just simple and heavy with meaning. We put it on that shelf in the hallway, the same shelf where he used to sit and watch the basement door. It felt right, like his post. Not long after, my family started fixing up a little farmhouse outside town. We didn't sell the old house. My sisters moved in to keep an eye on it while things transitioned. And then, right before one of the last big moves, I'm in the kitchen at the old house when I hear it again. That basement door, rattling. I walk toward the hallway, and then there's this loud, sharp bam, like something hit wood hard. When I get there, my mom and my brother and my younger sister are already standing in the hall, staring at the door like they don't trust their own eyes. I go, "What was that noise?" And my sister, still staring, says, "Something just flew off the shelf and hit the pantry door." I look down, and there's Hugo's urn on the floor, right in front of the pantry. And listen, there were other things on that shelf. Random little decorations, old clutter, stuff that could have fallen if something bumped it. But the only thing that came off, like it was chosen, was that. That was the first time I didn't try to rationalize it. I just felt this hot wave of anger, like a protective reflex. My mom crouched down, hands shaking. picking the urn up like it was fragile glass. And I, without thinking, I turned and yelled at the basement door. I yelled, "Leave him alone. He's already gone." Not witty, not brave, just raw. The door kept rattling for another minute or two, like it wanted the last word, and then it stopped. After that, my mom moved the urn to a different place, safer, away from that hallway. Now, these days, I spend most of my time at the farmhouse. It's quieter here. Peaceful, honestly. Nothing has ever happened here that feels like that. But the old house? It's still the old house. Because tonight, well, actually a couple hours ago, my mom and I were doing renovation work at the farmhouse, patching and smoothing drywall like normal people pretending our lives are normal. And her phone starts going off. Text notification after text notification. Rapid fire. Like someone was hammering the screen in a panic. And my mom goes, "That's your sister." Because the only person who sends messages like that is the one who's scared. And I can hear my sister's voice through the speaker. Shaky, breathy, terrified. She says the basement door in the old house started rattling again. She went to the hallway, watched it for a few seconds, trying to decide if she was imagining it. And then, like it got tired of being subtle, the door handle just fell off. Not came loose, not wiggled, just dropped, like something undid it. She's packing an overnight bag. She doesn't want to be alone there tonight. She's coming up to the farmhouse until someone else is home with her. And honestly, I don't blame her. Because once you've stood in a quiet house at 3 a.m, watching a door handle move like it has hands of its own, you don't forget that feeling. Not ever. So I literally just found this group, and I've been sitting here like, okay, I have to get this off my chest. Because this is hands down the creepiest stretch of my entire life. This all happened when I was in high school, back when I lived with my parents in this older house in a tiny town in northern Kansas. And I've always been one of those people who's kind of open to weird stuff. Like, I grew up on ghost shows. I lived for scary movies. I was that kid counting down to Halloween like it was a national holiday. So when two of my best friends, Kelsey and Marin, were like, "We should do a Ouija board," I didn't hesitate for even a second. Which, yeah, looking back, not my proudest decision. We went out late at night, because of course we did, and our town had this small cemetery tucked behind the old church, like right there in town. So naturally, that's where we went. Teenagers have zero sense of self-preservation, I swear. I'm not even going to drag you through every detail of the session, because honestly the part that freaks me out isn't what happened there, it's what happened after. But just so you get the vibe, we heard this creepy little kid giggle, like close enough that it made the hair on my neck stand up, and the board spelled out something that made us all go quiet. We shut it down, packed up, and went home acting tough, but we were all shaken. And the second I got home, it was like I hadn't come back alone. My brother Owen and I had bedrooms in the basement, and our rooms shared a wall. It was the middle of winter, freezing cold, and we had this little space heater on wheels down there, one of those dinky ones that slides around on the hard floor if you nudge it. That night, I heard it rolling, not turning on, not clicking, rolling, like it was being pulled across the floor. And listen, every scary movie has taught me one thing. The moment you go investigate the mysterious sound, you become a cautionary tale. So I did the only thing my terrified 16-year-old brain could think of. I stayed perfectly still and pulled my blanket over my head like that was going to save me from anything. That was night 1. After that, it wasn't a single weird noise here and there. It started stacking. Night after night, it got bolder. Outside my room, Mounted to one of the basement posts, we had this ancient manual pencil sharpener, the kind with the crank handle you spin. No idea why we even still had it, but it was there. And it started turning at night too. Not fast, just slow enough that you could hear the metal mechanism whining, like someone was patiently cranking it in the dark. Then it moved into my room. I had this glass jar, like a little vintage jelly jar, sitting on my dresser in the closet. And at night I'd hear it scraping, back and forth, on wood, over and over. I made this rule for myself early on. Don't acknowledge it. Don't talk to it, don't react, don't even look. Like if I pretended hard enough, maybe it would get bored and leave me alone. But it didn't get bored. The longer I ignored it, the more aggressive it got. Like it was mad I wouldn't pay attention. And one morning, after a particularly awful night, I finally looked. And there were fresh scratch marks gouged into the top of the dresser where that jar had been dragging itself around. That was the moment my stomach really dropped. Like, okay, this isn't my imagination. Still, I didn't tell my family. My parents believed in paranormal stuff in a casual way, like, oh yeah, spirits exist, kind of way. But they'd always insisted the house was fine. And I didn't want to be the dramatic kid who watched too many horror movies and freaked herself out. My room had that old wood paneling, and I'd hear tiny taps right near my headboard, right next to where I was lying. Not in the walls like plumbing, on the paneling, like knuckles. Sometimes it would pause, and the second my body relaxed, it would start again. And then there was this other thing that makes my skin crawl even now, because it wasn't just sounds. You know that feeling when a cat jumps onto your bed and pads around in circles before settling down? I felt that, on my mattress. Like something climbed onto the bed and walked around near my legs. Except there was no cat, no pet, nothing. And then, the whispers started. I'd be lying there in the dark, frozen, staring at the ceiling, and I'd hear my name. Soft, dragged out, like someone trying to get my attention without waking anyone else up. From my closet, every single night. And it wasn't just that either. On the left side of my bed, I had this big wooden bookshelf my grandpa had built for me. On top of it sat this small, flat-screen TV, and the buttons on the back were ridiculously loud when you pressed them, like a sharp plastic click that echoed. Those buttons started clicking at night too. So picture me, hearing the heater roll, the pencil sharpener crank, tapping beside my head, whispers in the closet, TV buttons clicking, and feeling something shift onto the bed like it belonged there. I was exhausted, jumpy, constantly on edge. I'd go to school on 2 hours of sleep and try to act normal while my brain screamed, "Do not go home." And then I hit my breaking point. One night, I had this nightmare that felt too real. So real it didn't even feel like a dream. In it, I was in my room, exactly as it was in real life. Same shadows, same corners, and as I looked around, I saw them. A little girl curled up in the corner of my closet, hugging her knees. A little boy at the side of my bed, pressing down on the mattress like he was testing it. A tall, dark figure crouched behind my bookshelf near the TV, and another shadowy figure in the opposite corner, tapping on the wall. Tap, tap, tap. I woke up shaking, like full-body, teeth-chattering shaking. The next morning, I finally told my brother Owen, because I couldn't keep it to myself anymore. I started describing the dream, and I swear to you, his face went pale. His eyes got huge, and he cut me off mid-sentence and said, "Wait, was the little boy by your bed wearing..." And then he described him. Exactly. Down to the details I hadn't even said yet. We had the same nightmare. That's when everything spilled out. I told him about the heater, the pencil sharpener, the jar, the tapping, the whispers, the TV buttons, the bed thing, everything. And he just nodded, because he'd heard it too. Then he told me something that made my throat go dry. He said he'd seen me sit straight up in bed at night and whisper back, like I was having conversations in my sleep with whatever was in my room. I had absolutely no memory of it. None. But he was dead serious, like he'd watched it happen more than once. And then he told me about the storage room. Across the basement from his bedroom was this little storage space that didn't even have a door, just a dark opening. I'd always hated it, like irrationally. Even walking past it made me feel sick, like the air was wrong there. I never understood why. I just avoided looking into it at night. His room faced it. He said he would wake up sometimes and see a shadowy man standing in that doorway. Not moving, just standing there. Some nights it was in the storage room opening. Some nights it was halfway between the storage room and his bed. And some nights, it was standing in the doorway of my room, staring in. I never saw it. Not once. Which somehow made it worse, because it felt like it was choosing to hide from me. We finally told our parents. My dad brushed it off, classic. But my mom got really quiet, and she admitted that when she was home alone sometimes, she'd hear faint whispering from downstairs. And once or twice, she'd heard someone call out, "Mom?" from the basement like it was me, even though I wasn't home. After we talked about it openly, things started happening less. Not immediately, but it wasn't constant the way it had been. One moment sticks with me, though. My boyfriend at the time, Ethan, who's my husband now, was over one night, and Owen and I were telling him everything, like really laying it all out. Halfway through, Ethan put his hands to his temples and was like, "Please stop. I've got this horrible headache all of a sudden." We stopped talking, and I'm not exaggerating. The headache vanished, like it turned off. Eventually, I moved out. I lived in an apartment for a while, and I did have a couple weird things happen. Like one time, 3 different clocks in 3 different rooms fell off their hooks and shattered within minutes of each other, which was a lot. But nothing ever reached that level again. And here's the part that makes me feel weirdly guilty. My mom and my brother told me that the very first night I wasn't living in that house anymore, everything stopped completely. No whispers, no tapping, no heater, nothing. Like whatever it was focused on me. So I don't know if I left something behind there, or if it was attached to me for a while and then gave up, or if the whole Ouija board thing cracked something open and it took time to close. All I know is this: I will never touch a Ouija board again as long as I live. And I am deeply, genuinely grateful that whatever that was isn't with me anymore. So, I don't really tell this story at parties. It's not that kind of spooky. It's the kind that sits in your ribs for years and only shows itself when you're alone at night, staring at the ceiling, wondering why your childhood memories feel haunted around the edges. When I was about 6, maybe 7, I got hit with a fever so hard it came on like a wave. This was early 90s, small town, not much money, and medical care was, let's just say it had limits. The clinic shut around dinner time, and after that, calling for the doctor felt like flipping a coin. Sometimes he'd come. Sometimes he'd come in a state you'd rather not see anyone holding medical equipment in. I knew that firsthand because one summer I wiped out on my bike and split my scalp open. Next thing I know, this man is stitching me up, and I swear he missed more than he hit. I still remember the sharp, wrong pinch when the needle didn't go where it was supposed to, like he was sewing the air and accidentally catching me in the process. I hated that man with a passion that only a kid can carry. Anyway, back to the fever. My mom told me later she was about to call him, even though she didn't want to, because my temperature was climbing fast and I was drifting in and out like a radio losing signal. But then, Just as she was reaching for the phone, my symptoms started easing up, like somebody turned a dial down. And the whole thing got filed away as one scary night, and life moved on. I didn't even remember it. Years later, 12, maybe 13, we were watching something on TV where someone was burning up with a fever. I asked, casually, "Did I ever get a fever like that when I was little?" My mom paused, just stopped what she was doing and looked at me in this really strange way. "You don't remember?" she asked. I laughed and said, "No, why would I?" And she said, very quietly, "What you said that night scared me more than the fever." That made my stomach drop a little because you know your mom's fear as a kid. It's like weather. When it shifts, you feel it. She asked me again, "Do you remember what you said you saw?" I told her no, not even a flicker. So she sat down and told me. She said I was in bed, skin blazing, eyes glassy, and she was perched on the edge of the mattress with a cold, damp cloth, pressing it gently to my forehead, just trying to keep me comfortable, trying not to panic. And then, out of nowhere, I sat bolt upright. I pointed over her shoulder, like my whole body was being yanked by something I could see that she couldn't. And I screamed, "Mom, turn around! It's behind you!" She told me the look on my face, pure terror, like I'd seen something that didn't belong in the world, went straight through her. She said she felt cold all over, even though the room was warm. She also said she didn't turn around, not because she didn't believe me, but because she was terrified that if she did, it would make it real. Like acknowledging it would invite it in. So she stayed facing me, voice steady, saying, "There's nothing there. You're okay. It's just your fever." But I kept crying and shouting, "It's coming closer! Mom, it's coming closer!" And the way she described it, this part still gets me. She said my eyes stopped focusing on the corner of the room and started staring right over her shoulder. Like whatever I thought I saw had moved. Like it was right behind her now. She told me she couldn't take it anymore. She pulled me against her chest, wrapped her arms around me tight, and covered my eyes with her hand like she could physically block whatever it was. And she said either I snapped out of it, or whatever I was seeing left us alone. That should have been the end of it. Just a fever story. A scary little family anecdote you roll your eyes at as you get older. But then there's the other part. A few years after that, around 9 or 10, there was this group of us who always hung out together on our estate. We were that tight little neighborhood pack, always outside, always daring each other into dumb stuff. One rainy afternoon, a bunch of us were at my mate Callum's house while his mom ran to the shops. His older brother was babysitting, which basically meant he told us not to bother him and disappeared into his room to play his console at full volume. Someone found Callum's older sister's Ouija board tucked away in a drawer. And because we were kids who'd been watching too much paranormal TV and thought fear was the same thing as fun, we decided, obviously, we were going to use it. At first it was jokes, stupid questions. Who's going to be famous? Who's going to marry who? Who's going to be rich? And everybody was giggling because you could tell someone was nudging the planchette. But then we got serious in that dramatic way kids do, like we were suddenly researchers conducting a scientific experiment. We all agreed. No pushing. No messing around. And after a bit of whispering and snickering, this kid, Jasper, blurts out, "Call the house phone." Not "give us a sign," not "move the glass," not "knock on the wall." Just "call the house phone." And I swear to you, the planchette shot across the board and landed on yes, like it was yanked there. And then the phone rang. Instantly. Like no pause. No, maybe it'll ring in a minute. Just, yes, ring. Every one of us froze with our hands still on that plastic thing, The laughter died so fast it was like someone unplugged it. The phone kept ringing and ringing, and nobody moved. It felt wrong to answer, like picking up would complete whatever we'd started. And then, from the older brother's room, we hear him shout, furious, "Answer the bloody phone!" So Jasper, because he was more scared of getting yelled at than of ghosts, snatched it up and put it to his ear. And his face just drained, white as paper. He slammed the receiver down like it burned him and rushed back to the board, breath shaking, going, "I'm done. I'm done. I'm not playing anymore." We demanded to know what he heard. He said it was low and crackly, like it was coming through water, but underneath it there was this voice, rough, almost snarling, saying something that sounded like, "Zuzu, Zuzu." And the second he said it out loud, the phone rang again. Nobody answered that time, not even with the older brother shouting. We just tore the board back into the box like it was poisonous and sat there in this awful silence until the ringing stopped and the front door opened. Callum's mum walked in with shopping bags and immediately went, "What's wrong with you lot? Why are you all so quiet?" Then she looked at Callum like she already knew. "What did you break?" she snapped. We didn't explain. We couldn't. We just muttered excuses, grabbed our coats, and scattered like our lives depended on it. And outside, we all agreed, right there on the pavement, we don't talk about it again. We didn't. Not for years. Then comes the last part, the part that makes me feel sick, because it's the one that grew teeth. When we were about 11, the older kids, me included, were the cool group. And we did that gross older kid thing where we made little ones prove themselves with initiation rituals. Nothing we thought was serious at the time, but looking back, we were idiots. Cruel in that careless way kids can be. They called it the hanging shed. The story went that somewhere outside town, there was an old shed left standing from centuries ago, from back when the first houses were built. The family who owned the land had supposedly done evil rituals, and the church people, townsfolk, destroyed their house and forced them out. But the shed got overlooked and stayed there, rotting in the field, waiting. And every 100 years, on the anniversary of the house being torn down, the shed would claim someone. A man would leave his home in the night, walk miles in the dark, and hang himself from a beam. The detail that made everyone go quiet was this: there was no ladder, and the beam was too high. And every time it happened, people said there was no way someone could have tied it up there alone. One of the older lads, Dylan, finished telling it, let the silence stretch, and then said, "I know where it is." And like moths, we followed. He led us out to this field where there really was a shed standing by itself, small, wooden, old-looking. The older kids knew it probably belonged to a farmer nearby, but the little ones didn't. And you could see it on their faces. They wanted it to be the hanging shed. They wanted the story to be true. So we made it into a test. We told them, if you go inside, close the door, and stay longer than anyone else, you're in. It was already getting dark, early evening, cold air, that kind of dim light where everything looks more sinister than it should. And that shed had no windows. Once you stepped inside and the door shut, you were swallowed by black. One kid refused outright and backed away, shaking. We teased him, of course. Another went in first, and, because we were awful, we crept around banging on the walls, scraping sticks, whispering nonsense until he burst out in tears. We pretended to look impressed, like, "Ooh, did you hear something?" Like we hadn't been the ones making it. Then it was the last kid's turn, a boy called Noah. Noah wasn't really in our group, but everyone liked him. Quiet, brave, trying hard not to show fear. He stepped into the shed, and we shut the door. And this time, this is important, we didn't do anything. No banging, no whispering, nothing. We stood around talking about random stuff, already losing interest. Someone counted seconds for a bit, then stopped. It felt like he'd been in there ages, long enough that we started getting impatient and cold and hungry. We were about to open the door and call it a day when we heard Noah screaming from inside. Not joking screaming, not boo screaming, real screaming. He was pounding on the door, shouting, "Let me out! Let me out!" We yelled back, "It's not locked!" Because it wasn't. There was no lock on the outside. He could have opened it, but he kept shrieking like he couldn't find the handle, like it wasn't there, like the door wasn't a door anymore. So we rushed in, grabbed the handle, and pulled. It wouldn't budge. I remember the panic that flashed through all of us at once, because suddenly we weren't playing a game. We were standing outside a shed with a child sobbing inside it. We yanked and yanked until it finally gave way, so suddenly that we all tumbled backwards into each other, a heap in the mud. And Noah came flying out like he'd been shot from a cannon. He didn't stop. He didn't look back. He sprinted across the field like something was on his heels. We chased him, shouting his name, and when we finally caught up, he was shaking so badly he could barely stand. "What happened?" we asked. "What did you see?" He stared at us with this blank, stunned horror and said, "Once, only once, I saw the noose." And then he refused to talk about it ever again. I didn't think about that shed for nearly a decade. Then one morning, when I was 19, I got a knock at my flat door. I opened it and saw a couple of lads from the old estate, faces pale, eyes red like they hadn't slept. They told me Noah was dead. He'd hanged himself the night before, in a shed. A farmer found him in the morning. He was 17, and the whole town went strange after that, quiet in the worst way. There were rumors, and the police asked questions, and people kept saying the same thing over and over. How could he have done it alone? They investigated it for months. There was talk of foul play, talk of someone helping, someone forcing, someone staging. But in the end, it was ruled a suicide. And I know, logically, I know coincidences happen. Tragedies happen. People suffer in ways you never see coming. But every so often, late at night, my mind drifts back to a cold towel on my forehead, my mum refusing to turn around, a phone ringing at the exact wrong moment, and a shed in a dark field. And I can't help wondering, just for a second, just a tiny, sickening second, what if, that night when we were kids, we really did find it? Okay. So I'm going to tell you something that still makes my stomach drop when I think about it. A little while back, maybe 5 or 6 weeks ago, I was home with my parents on a quiet Saturday. I'm 23, and I have this boring little weekend habit where I like to fill up my tank before the week starts. There's this grocery store gas station a few minutes away where it's usually a couple cents cheaper. So I told my dad, "I'm just going to run out for gas. I'll be right back." And my dad, love him truly, but he has this thing where he acts like I'm going into the wilderness every time I leave the driveway. Like I've been pumping my own gas for years. I don't need an escort mission. So I leave, and instead of taking the quickest route, I do what I always do. I take the longer loop to avoid this annoying left turn that stresses me out. It turns a short drive into a slightly longer one, but I prefer it. It's calmer. I'm a few minutes into the drive when I notice a car behind me. Really close. And I'm not even exaggerating. Close enough that I could see the driver's face clearly in my rearview mirror. And here's the thing. My parents' car is distinct. It's this pale blue-gray color that you don't see often. Like someone tried to describe storm cloud but made it prettier. You can spot it from far away. So when I see that exact car behind me, My first thought is the most annoyed thought imaginable. Oh my God, they're following me. I roll my eyes so hard it almost hurt. In my head, I'm going, are you serious? You think I can't handle a gas pump? I'm literally going to stand next to my car for 3 minutes and swipe a card. I slow down at a stop sign, and I angle my side mirror just a little, trying to get a better look without turning my whole head around like a paranoid person. And I swear to you, it looked exactly like my parents. My mom in the passenger seat, my dad driving. Same hair, same faces, same posture. Even the way my dad holds his shoulders when he drives, kind of stiff, like he's bracing for somebody to cut him off. But something was wrong. Their faces were completely blank. Not neutral like we're just driving. Blank like there was nothing happening behind their eyes. No irritation, no focus, no warmth, just empty. You know when you see someone and you can tell they're there? Like you can feel the person inside the body? This was the opposite of that. It looked like them, but it didn't feel like them. Like somebody put their faces on 2 mannequins and told them to sit in a car. And it freaked me out. But in that weird way where your brain tries to protect you by pretending it's fine. So I tell myself, okay, weird lighting, weird angle, whatever. I keep driving. I'm thinking maybe they'll pull up next to me at the gas station and I'll have this whole awkward moment where I'm like, seriously? And they'll laugh it off. But as I get closer to the station, I check my mirror again, and they're gone. Just not there anymore. And I know what you're thinking. They turned off somewhere, took a different road. Maybe you lost them. Except I had been watching them. They were right behind me, and then suddenly they weren't. No turn signal, no slowing down, no obvious side street where they could have slipped away. It felt like a scene got cut, and it shows my parents at home. At home. Still there. I just stared at my screen like it was going to correct itself. Like the dot would move and be like, just kidding, here they are. But it didn't. It stayed planted at the house. And the math wasn't mathing. Even if they'd turned around the second I saw them, even if they'd floored it, even if every traffic light magically turned green, there was no way they could have been back home that fast. So now I'm pumping gas, heart doing this slow, heavy thump, and my brain is flipping between explanations like channels on a TV. Maybe the app glitched. Maybe it wasn't them. Maybe I'm overreacting. Maybe I'm not remembering the car color right. But I am remembering it right. I know their car. I know my parents. I drive home and I'm quiet the whole way, like I don't want to invite the weirdness back by talking about it out loud. When I get home, everything is normal. The house sounds normal. The TV is on. The vibe is safe. Later that night, I try to bring it up casually because I don't want to sound like I'm losing it. So I'm like, laughing, trying to make it light. Hey, Mom, why were you and Dad tailing me earlier? And she looks at me like I just asked her why she used to be a pirate. She goes, what are you talking about? So I tell her the whole thing, how I saw their car behind me, how I saw them, how it freaked me out. And she just keeps shaking her head, more confused by the second. Then she calls for my dad, like she needs a witness. And my dad comes in and he's like, we haven't left the house all day. Not defensive, not teasing, just matter of fact. And I'm standing there trying to laugh, trying to act like it's a funny misunderstanding. But inside I feel this cold little drop, because now I don't have a neat explanation. Because if it wasn't them, then who did I see? And why did it look so much like my parents, down to the smallest details, but without any of the life that makes them my parents? That's the part that gets me. Not just that I saw people who looked like them. It's that for a few seconds, I felt like I was looking at something pretending to be them. And I know how dramatic that sounds. I know. But that's honestly the closest way I can explain the feeling. It's been sitting in the back of my mind ever since, like a splinter you can't quite dig out. And every time I think about those blank expressions in the mirror, I get this urge to check behind me again, just to make sure the road is normal. Because I still don't know what I saw. And I don't know what's worse, having no explanation or having one. Okay, so I need to tell you something that happened tonight, and I'm still kind of buzzing from it. Like, I'm sitting at home right now, warm and safe, and even thinking about it makes my skin prickle. So, some quick background. My partner Maya and I have this dog. He's a 5-year-old Siberian Husky Malamute mix named Coda. Big, fluffy goofball. And if you know Huskies, you know they don't really bark so much as commentary. He's a talker, a howler, a dramatic little opera singer. But here's the thing, Coda almost never barks. Like, I can count on one hand the times I've heard it in all the years we've had him. He's friendly with basically everyone. So if he ever barks at a person, that's not just unusual, that's wrong. Anyway, every evening around 6:15, we take him on this long walk at a small neighborhood park nearby. It's not some popular city park, more like a tucked-away trail loop that mostly locals use. We recognize most of the regular dog walkers, even if we don't know their names. It's usually calm, familiar, routine. Not tonight. Tonight, it was cold. Like that biting winter cold where the air feels sharp. We're in the Pacific Northwest, and the fog lately has been pretty heavy. But when we stepped outside, we both just stopped and went, whoa. The fog was thick. Not spooky movie thick, more like the world ends 10 feet away from you thick. The streetlights weren't even really cutting through it. And I remember thinking, as soon as we turned onto the path, I really should have brought a flashlight. So we're walking, talking about normal stuff. Work, errands, dumb little day things, while Coda does his usual routine, sniffing like the ground is telling him secrets. It's quiet in the park, which isn't weird this time of year. Most people do their dog walks before dark. I'm a few steps ahead of Maya. I keep turning back when I talk, just out of habit. We're maybe 100 yards in when I turn back again, and I swear my stomach just dropped. Because behind Maya, maybe 8 or 10 yards back, there's someone. Just suddenly there. A small person, maybe around 5'2", walking toward us. They're holding something bright, like a phone or small flashlight, but the light is aimed up toward their face. And I'm telling you, I couldn't see their face at all. Not even a hint. The hood they had on was huge, like oversized, and it hung low. The light made it worse, washed out everything except this blank shadow under the hood. They had this weird combination of clothes, too, like a colorful, drapey outer layer over dark pants, and then this bulky hoodie on top. I couldn't tell their age, their gender, nothing. Just a shape walking through the fog with a bright light aimed at their own head. And what freaked me out most was the timing. Because seconds before, when I'd last looked back, there was nobody. This trail is open. No trees right up against it, no place to duck behind. And yet somehow this person just appeared like they'd stepped out of the fog itself. So I quietly tell Maya, "Hey, let's step off the trail and let them pass." We move into the grass with Coda, acting casual, like no big deal. And the person walks by us. Except, they don't look up. Not once. They don't glance sideways. They don't acknowledge us at all. No nod, no quick, "evening," nothing. They just keep walking forward with that light held up, face completely hidden, moving in this stiff, almost mechanical way. It felt robotic. That's the only word I have for it. We wait a minute or two, let Coda do his thing, then we get back on the trail. Still no flashlight. Still that fog swallowing everything. About a minute later, we round this bend, and I see the same person again, standing dead still in the middle of the trail ahead of us. We stop too because... what do you even do? We just stand there watching. They take a couple steps, stop again. A couple steps, stop again. Like they're glitching. And this is when Coda's whole vibe changes. He goes stiff. His tail changes position, lower, tense. He starts whining under his breath, like anxious little sounds he almost never makes. His body language is screaming that something is wrong. Maya and I don't even need to talk about it. We just automatically step off the trail again and do this big, looping detour through the grass to reconnect with the trail farther ahead, maybe 50 or 60 yards past the person. The whole time, I keep looking back, and that figure is still just standing there. We end up near this little kid's play area, slides and climbing stuff, and we let Coda sniff around in the wood chips for a second, trying to calm him down, trying to convince ourselves we're overreacting. And then we hear it. A dog barking like absolutely losing its mind, coming from back the way we came. A second later, I see a guy appear through the fog, pulling his dog hard on the leash, like dragging it away from something. The dog is lunging and barking and snapping the air, full chaos. And the guy keeps saying, "I'm so sorry, he never does this, I don't know what's gotten into him." He looks embarrassed, but also shaken, like he wants out of there. He passes the same hooded person, who is still holding that light up, still not looking at anyone, and the person doesn't react, doesn't flinch, doesn't even turn their head. The guy and his dog basically hurry out through the nearest exit, and then it's just us, and the fog, and that figure. And that's when it gets worse, because the person starts moving in this strange pattern, walking backward a few steps, stopping, then forward a few steps, stopping, turning around, then turning back, like a messed up metronome. Then suddenly they turn and walk away. 5 seconds later they stop, turn around and walk toward us. Stop again. I'm just standing there staring like my brain can't file what I'm seeing. Maya says, very calmly but very firmly, "Let's go. Now." And right as we start moving, Coda explodes. He bolts toward the figure so hard the leash snaps tight and nearly yanks Maya off balance. I shout, "Coda, stop!" He stops, barely, and then he unleashes these deep, aggressive barks I have never heard from him. Not once, not ever. He's leaning forward, teeth showing, full defensive posture, like he's ready to launch. And the figure starts pacing, fast, back and forth, still with that light up, still never looking up, never turning their head, like they're pretending nothing is happening while moving like a wind-up toy. Maya and I look at each other, and we both say it at the same time. We need to leave. So we get moving toward the next exit path, and Maya is basically hauling Coda away while he refuses to turn his body. He's walking sideways, straining, barking non-stop, eyes locked on that person the entire time like he can't let them out of his sight. It takes everything to get him out of the park, and even once we're on the road heading home, he keeps looking back and pulling, like he wants to go back, or like he's scared something will follow. He only finally relaxes when the park disappears completely into the fog behind us. And the whole way home, Maya and I are just talking over each other, trying to make it make sense, because we've walked that trail hundreds of times, and nothing like that has ever happened. But tonight Tonight felt like we crossed paths with something that didn't belong there. Hey, hi, I'm Marina, and I'm still kind of shaky even saying this out loud. I honestly never thought I'd be the type of person to share a story like this, mostly because I'm the rational one in my friend group. I'm a model, and a lot of my work is self-shot content, usually in my own place where everything feels familiar and controlled. But a few weeks back, I got this itch to do something different. Something that looked a little more high-end and cinematic. So I rented this gorgeous apartment for the night. Really modern, sleek furniture, polished floors, and these massive windows that made the whole city look like it was sparkling. You know that kind of view where you just stand there for a second and feel like you're inside a movie? That. At first, everything was normal. I set up my ring light and a softer side light, got my tripod straight, checked my angles, hit record. Easy. But the quiet in that place felt too clean, like the air was holding its breath. And every time I glanced toward the windows, especially when I caught my own reflection, I'd get this weird little shiver, like I'd just stepped into a colder room. The kind of chill that makes your skin tighten. I tried to laugh it off. New space, nighttime nerves, city lights playing tricks, whatever. Then, in the middle of a take, my camera just shut off. No warning. No low battery. Nothing. It shouldn't have happened. I remember standing there with my hands half raised like, seriously? Because it was fully charged and working perfectly minutes earlier. I turned it back on and went to check the clip, mostly to see where it cut out. And I wish I hadn't. Because in the video, behind me, there's this huge window, and in that glass, reflected clear as day, is a face. Not mine. This pale, hollow-looking face with these sunken eyes, and this smile that didn't look like a person smiling. It wasn't even scary in a boo kind of way. It was scary in a wrong way, like it didn't belong in a human expression. My stomach dropped so hard I felt nauseous. I replayed it again, and again, and again. I even leaned closer to the screen like that would somehow change what I was seeing. I kept trying to explain it. Maybe it was a weird light flare. Maybe my own reflection warped. Maybe something outside the building. But here's the thing. The face looked like it was looking at me, not just floating there in the glass, like it had intention. I panicked and deleted the clip. Immediately. Like if it was gone, it couldn't follow me. I know that sounds ridiculous, but in that moment, I wasn't thinking logically. I was thinking like a cornered animal. I told myself, finish your shoot, don't be dramatic. So I tried, but once I hit record again, I started hearing things. First, this soft snap from the kitchen area, like someone lightly cracked a knuckle or bumped a cabinet. I stood still, listening, holding my breath. Then came the footsteps. Not loud, almost careful, like someone walking in socks down a hallway, trying not to be noticed. I called out, "Hello?" in the dumbest, smallest voice. No answer. And I know what you're thinking. Maybe it was another guest, maybe the host, maybe a neighbor. But I had checked in alone. The door was locked, and the apartment was one of those places where you can see most of the space from the living room. There wasn't anywhere someone could just casually stand without me noticing. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely steady the tripod. And then, I did the one thing I promised myself I wouldn't do. I looked at the window again. Not directly outside, at the reflection. And I saw something move behind me. That was it. That was the moment my brain went, nope, we're done. I didn't even pack properly. I grabbed my phone, my bag, and whatever equipment I could carry in one trip. I left a light stand behind, and I think one of my lenses was still on the table. I didn't care. I just needed out. I remember practically running down the hallway to the elevator, jabbing the button like it was taking forever on purpose. And even when the doors closed, I still felt like something was right behind me, just out of sight. Since that night, I haven't slept the same. Every time I close my eyes, I see that face in the glass. The too wide smile, the hollow stare. And the worst part is, I brought the feeling home with me. Because now, sometimes, I'll be in my own apartment, my safe place, and I'll catch myself turning around for no reason, like I'm expecting to see someone standing there. And I hate admitting this, but there are moments where I swear the room gets that same kind of quiet, like the air is holding its breath again. So I'm telling you because I don't know what to do with it anymore. I don't know if it was something paranormal, or if fear and stress made my brain fill in blanks, but I know what I saw in that reflection, and I know how it felt. Have you ever had something like that happen? Like, not just being scared, but feeling like you were being noticed. So this happened maybe 4-ish years ago, and I swear, I still get that icy, prickly feeling just thinking about it. Okay, quick setup. My buddy Evan asked if I wanted to come with him to his dad's place for the afternoon. We get there, and his dad's like, "Hey, I'm going out of town for the weekend. Anniversary trip. Can you guys house sit?" And of course we say yes. Easy. Evan tells me he's going to jump in the shower real fast, so I'm just hanging out in the spare bedroom, sitting on the edge of the bed, scrolling on my phone. His little pug, Daisy, climbs up next to me and plops down like she owns the place. And then, out of nowhere, Daisy stands straight up, stiff as a board. She turns her head toward the closet, like laser-focused, and just stares. The closet door is cracked open, dark inside, and she starts this low growl that doesn't even sound like her. It's not playful. It's not, "Someone's at the door." It's, "Warning." Then she barks, like full-on, furious barking at the closet. And I remember thinking, oh, awesome. Of course. The dog sees something I don't. A couple days later, it's the night we're actually house-sitting. Evan's dad is already gone. Evan and I are wiped because we'd been out late the night before. Some show downtown, loud crowd, barely any sleep. We're back in the spare room, getting ready to crash. Door open because we've got this box fan wedged in the doorway to move air through the hall. The TV's on low, just enough background noise to drift off. And Evan keeps sitting up a little and going, "Did you just see that?" And I'm like, "See what?" And he goes, super casually, like it's no big deal. "That guy, he keeps peeking around the door at us." I didn't see anything. I genuinely thought he was just exhausted and jumpy. So I'm like, "Dude, go to sleep." Eventually he does. He passes out. And that's when I start seeing it. Not like a full person walking in or anything, more like a shape. A head and shoulder kind of silhouette, just barely leaning around the doorway from the hall. I'd glance up, and it would pull back, like it knew. So I'd stare at the doorway, heart thudding, telling myself my eyes were playing tricks on me. Then I'd look down at the TV for a second, look back up, and there it was again. And every single time I caught it, it would duck away like, "Nope, you're not allowed to see me." This happened over and over, 4, 5 times. Enough that I wasn't questioning it anymore. I was just lying there thinking, "Please don't come in. Please don't come in." And then, like someone flipped a switch, Evan's legs start shaking. Not a little twitch, like rhythmic, violent shaking. The kind where your brain immediately goes to worst-case scenarios. Then it spreads. His whole body starts doing it. And Daisy, who'd been asleep, launches upright and jumps right onto his chest, barking in his face like she's trying to drag his soul back into his body. She's going crazy. I lean over and start shaking him. "Evan, Evan, Evan, saying his name over and over. His eyes open wide, but there is nothing behind them. He's looking through me, not at me. And then he starts making this sound, like he's trying to yell but can't. It starts small, almost strangled, then gets louder and louder until it's this awful, strained, rising noise that makes my stomach drop. I shake him again, harder, and finally he snaps out of it like a diver breaking the surface. He gulps air and goes, Just give me a second. Then he looks toward the foot of the bed and says, dead serious, "Didn't you just see that guy standing there?" And I'm like, "Evan, you were staring at me. There was no guy at the foot of the bed." Later, I found out Evan gets sleep paralysis and night terrors, especially at his dad's place. But I didn't know that then. All I knew was what I felt. The room wasn't normal anymore. And here's the part where I'll probably sound ridiculous, but whatever. My mom used to read all those old paranormal books, and one thing she always said stuck with me. If something is trapped or lingering, you can tell it to go toward the light. Like, give it permission to leave. So I get up, trying to act brave even though my knees are basically water, and I walk out into the living room. And I say, out loud, something like, "You're scaring me. I don't want you here. If you can go, go. If there's a light, go to it." From the bedroom, Evan yells, half laughing, "Yeah, go toward the TV." And I snapped at him, like actually angry. "Don't do that. Don't joke, seriously." I go back into the room and sit on the bed again. And from that moment on, for the next hour, maybe more, it was like the room kept getting invaded in waves. Every 5 to 10 minutes you'd feel it. The air would change. The pressure would shift, like someone had put a heavy blanket over the whole room. The temperature would drop, not like, "Oh, it's cooler," but like the warmth got pulled out of the space. The energy felt mean, irritated, like we were somewhere we weren't welcome. Both of us would get goosebumps so intense it was painful, like every hair on my arms and legs was standing straight up. It felt like something was circling us, swirling around the bed, angry as hell. And then it would leave, and the room would loosen again, normal-ish. Evan eventually fell back asleep, because of course he did. And I just lay there, frozen, wide awake, staring at the wall beside me. And then the knocking starts, right by my head, on the wall I was leaning against. Knock, knock, knock. Then silence. Then again. Knock, knock, knock. Every few minutes. Like someone in the guest bathroom on the other side of the wall was rapping their knuckles against it just to remind me they could. I didn't move. I didn't breathe right. I just waited for morning like it was a rescue helicopter. The next day, Evan's dad gets home. The second he walks in, I'm like, "We need to step outside for a minute." I didn't even care how weird I sounded. We go out onto the front porch, and I just look at him and go, "What is in your house?" He kind of squints at me. "What do you mean?" And I go, "The thing in your house. It's not friendly." And he nods, like I'd asked him where the extra towels were. He goes, "Oh, yeah. The guy who owned it before me, he took his own life in the house. Shot himself. He didn't like anybody being here. Didn't want me here when I first bought the place either. He's calmed down some over time." I swear my stomach dropped right through the porch, because suddenly everything, the dog, the peeking figure, the heavy waves, the knocking, clicked into place in the worst way. I've had strange moments before, little things you can shrug off, a weird feeling, a cold spot, a dream that feels too real. But that weekend, that was the darkest, most hostile energy I've ever felt in my life. Like being tolerated by something that hated you for breathing in its space. And I'll tell you this, I have never been so relieved to leave a house. I hope I never, ever feel that presence again. Okay, so I'm going to try to tell this in a way that makes sense, and I really appreciate you sticking with me if I ramble a little. I'm 19 now. I'm non-binary, and I've had this thing around me basically my whole life. And before anything else, because I know how people can get, I've talked to therapists, I've done screenings, I've had the "are you hallucinating" conversations. I'm not diagnosed with schizophrenia or anything like that. I've tried so hard to explain all of this away as anxiety, or stress, or misremembering, or coincidence. But it's been years, and it doesn't feel like coincidence anymore. Since I was little, it's been the same pattern, that heavy feeling of being watched when I'm alone. Shadowy shapes out of the corner of my eye, hearing my name, in the exact voice of someone I know. And then I'll ask them later, and they'll swear they never said anything. And then there's the physical stuff, which is the part that makes my stomach drop. Random bruises, tiny scratches, sometimes deeper ones, showing up like they've been there the whole time, except I'll watch them appear or realize they weren't there a minute ago. When I was a kid, I didn't even call it paranormal. I just accepted it. Like, oh, that's just how things are. I remember I had this little wax figure I made, kind of like a stand-in for me. I kept it on my shelf, way in the back, not near the edge or anything. It fell once, and I was able to fix it. Then it fell again later, and that time it shattered so badly I couldn't repair it. I tried to laugh it off, but even then it felt like a message. Around middle school, I started realizing I might be sensitive, I guess. But at that age, I didn't have the words, so my brain grabbed the closest thing it could. I was obsessed with creepy internet stories, like deeply obsessed. And I convinced myself that some of it was real. There was this whole phase where I genuinely thought Slender Man was after me, which I know sounds ridiculous now, but I was a kid, and I was scared, and it felt like it fit. And sure, some of it probably was my imagination, but not all of it. There's one night I still can't explain, and I swear I remember it like it's burned into my bones. I read one of those stupid chain stories that says if you read it, some killer shows up that night. And I panicked so hard I didn't even go to bed. I locked myself in the bathroom with this tiny kitchen knife, like that was going to do anything. And I stayed there. I didn't sleep. I didn't nod off. I was wide awake. And around midnight, I heard footsteps. Not house creaks, not pipes. Actual footsteps, coming up the stairs. Slow, steady, like someone who wasn't rushing. Then the handle on the bathroom door jiggled, and whoever it was, knocked. I didn't answer. I couldn't. I just sat there holding my breath, frozen so hard my hands hurt. And then, this is the part that makes my throat tighten even now. The footsteps didn't go away. They paced, back and forth, like the person was waiting, like they knew I was there. That lasted until around 3 in the morning, and then the footsteps went back down the stairs and stopped. The next day, nothing. No missing stuff, no broken locks, no smashed window. Nothing I could point to and say, see, this happened. But I know what I heard. I know I was awake. And it wasn't that creepypasta character. It was just something real that I don't have a clean explanation for. Then it was my turn to tell the story. And it worked. Like, immediately. Mira's cousin was the one with their head in my lap, and when we sat them up later, there were these big red scratch marks across their back. Not bleeding, thank God. More like irritated welts, like when you drag your nails across skin. But nobody had touched them. And it wasn't subtle. Everybody saw it. We tried it again with different people, and it happened again. It was like it only had power when I was the one leading it. When other people tried it on me, it kind of worked, but weaker. And the weirdest part was the animals. Her dog and even their old cat were acting wild, like they could feel something in the room with us. That's the kind of thing that sticks with you, you know? Even if you want to forget it. The most consistent thing, though, the thing I can't escape, is the voices. I've heard my name called for as long as I can remember. Sometimes it's like it's coming from another room, sometimes right behind me, and I'll turn around and nobody's there. Or I'll ask, "Did you just call me?" And they'll look at me like I'm speaking another language. The scratches haven't been as bad lately, but I still don't trust my own skin. There were a few that left scars that make no sense. One time I looked at my forearm, looked away, then looked back, and there was a thin, pale scar like it had been healed for weeks. It wasn't there seconds before. That kind of thing messes with your head because you can't even argue with it. You can't, "Oh, maybe I bumped into something." How do you bump into something and instantly have an old scar? Then, during the pandemic, when I still lived with my parents, there was this moment that was different. I was in the kitchen washing dishes, totally normal, and I got this sudden urge to look behind me. Not like, I think someone's there, more like my body moved before my brain caught up. And there was someone standing there. I can't even describe them properly because my brain did this weird thing where it refused to hold on to the details, like it blurred. But it was a person shape, a presence, close enough that my heart should have exploded. I stared for a second, then turned back to the sink like I was on autopilot. And then the thought hit me like a slap. What the hell was that? And I whipped around again. Nothing. And I was home alone. That was the first time I felt like I actually saw it, not just sensed it. And what scares me is, it didn't feel angry. It didn't feel like it wanted to hurt me. It was just there, watching, like it always does. But this past year, things shifted. My luck has always been kind of awful, but it's been like the volume got turned up. I got kicked out of my old place in late November, and I barely managed to move in with my roommates. My roommates are also pagan. One of them, Rowan, practices a lot more than I do, and their partner Jules is really tuned in too. I'm the laziest witch in the house, honestly. I believe, but I'm not consistent. And now I'm wondering if that matters. Because on top of the housing chaos, Rowan's health has been getting worse. Doctors think they might be having seizures. It's been scary and exhausting and just one more weight. And then the pets. We lost so many this year it sounds unreal when I say it out loud. Rats, birds, a kitten. Some of it made sense. Old age, known issues. But some of it didn't. One of the birds was fine, like actually fine. Then one morning we found it on the floor, dead, no visible injuries. And the cage door was open, the water dish was empty, and food was dumped everywhere. Except I know I had refilled everything the day before. That morning, around 9:52, Rowan woke up late and was panicking. Jules woke up too, helped them get up, and Rowan sprinted out the door because they were already about to miss work. Like, no pause, no slow morning routine, just up and gone. A few minutes after that, maybe 5, not long, they started smelling something burning. They went looking and found the space heater on, cranked to full heat, hot enough they couldn't touch it. And we do not turn that heater on, ever. We keep stuff near it, and everyone in the house knows it stays off. The dial wasn't bumped slightly. It was twisted all the way to the end, like someone intentionally turned it. They checked the thermostat in the room. Nothing changed there. Then they checked the hallway controls, and that one was also set to full heat. And it couldn't have been the cats. Our cats are lazy little gremlins, but they don't mess with that stuff. And even if they did, the knob being perfectly maxed out makes no sense. It would have landed somewhere in the middle. The timing freaked us out because for the heater to be that hot, it had to have been turned on basically right when Jules woke up. Like, right as they were getting up and moving around. Which means, if nobody did it, Then what did? We had this awful thought. What if whatever follows me isn't just messing with me anymore? What if it's trying to escalate? What if it wanted to scare us, or worse, start something that could have actually hurt us? And here's another detail that makes it worse. The day before, Rowan had this moment where all the hair on their body stood up, and they got full-body goosebumps out of nowhere. They said it only happened once before in their life, and the last time, it was right before they had an experience with something that did hurt them. And on top of that, their altar, dedicated to a sea deity, I think they said Pontus, has been feeling agitated, like the energy around it is unsettled and sharp. So now I'm sitting here like, okay, I've wanted answers for years, but I could afford to live in denial. It was creepy, but manageable. Now it feels like I don't have that luxury. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's attached to me, if it's attracted to me, if it's something I accidentally invited in when I was younger and scared and messing with things I didn't understand. I don't know if it's a spirit or just some pattern of energy that keeps following me like a shadow with a mind. I just know this. It's been with me a long time. And lately, it feels closer. And I'm trying really hard not to panic, but I also feel like I need to figure out what I'm dealing with before it gets worse. So, I've got two stories for you. They happened in the same general area, and I still get that tight, prickly feeling in my chest when I replay them. I live out in a valley in western Utah, not far from the Nevada line. There's a mountain right near us, and it's the kind of place where wildlife doesn't stay politely up in the hills. Deer wander down like they own the roads, and you'll hear about mountain lions every so often. People spotting them, losing chickens, finding tracks, that kind of place. Anyway, first story. I'm in the car with my best friend Riley, just driving through our neighborhood in the middle of the day. Bright daylight, no weird shadows, nothing like that. And we see this dog on the side of the road near a tree. Not a stray-looking dog either, just ancient. Like, how is he even out here old? Gray muzzle, droopy eyes, ears hanging low, moving like every step is a negotiation with his joints. I tell Riley to pull over because I'm thinking, this dog is going to get hit. He can barely move and he's right by the street. I get out and I start walking toward him, soft voice, hands low, trying to look harmless. The dog tucks his tail and gives me this low, warning woof. Not feral, not panicked, almost annoyed, like I'm interrupting something. Then he turns away from me and starts hobbling toward the road. That freaks me out even more. I rush back to the car to grab something, anything, like a cracker, a piece of granola, whatever we have, just to coax him close enough to check a tag. I hop back in and I'm like, Riley, just creep forward, don't lose him. And listen, my eyes never leave that dog, not even once. We roll forward maybe 10 feet. The dog turns toward this house and slips between two parked cars out front. I immediately tell Riley to stop because I'm picturing him stepping into the road and us clipping him. I jump out and go straight to the spot, and he's just gone. Like, gone. There's no dog under the cars, no dog behind the cars, no dog in the yard, no dog limping away down the sidewalk. The street is empty. And this wasn't a quick, healthy dog that could bolt. This was a fragile, old animal that was moving at a snail's pace. There's no way he could have disappeared without us seeing where he went. Riley and I search for a solid 10 minutes. We're calling out, shaking a bag of snacks, scanning under bushes, checking behind fences. Nothing. No collar jingle, no paw steps, no barking, no owner coming out like, "Oh, that's my dog." It happened in broad daylight, and there wasn't anyone outside with us. Just this normal, quiet street, and a dog that blinked out of existence. Okay, second story. A different night, same general area. I'm walking with Riley again, later than we should have been out, honestly. The air's cold, and the neighborhood feels extra still, like you can hear the space between sounds. We're heading toward her house, and the quickest way takes us along a few streets that angle toward the mountain. We hear a dog barking. Not close, like a few streets up, but clear enough to raise the hair on your arms. It's coming from the direction of the mountain, kind of echoing between houses. We keep walking because we have to pass that way anyway. And we're doing the usual nice voice thing, even though the dog isn't right in front of us yet. Like, "Hey buddy, it's okay," and "Go home," because sometimes that actually helps. Then we see it. A dog shape near a parked car up ahead, just enough movement to catch our attention. And as we approach, it slips behind the car. And I swear to you, within the same second, a man steps out from behind that exact same car. Not a dog, a man. And the dog is just not there anymore. He just walks away. Calm. Steady. Like we're not even real. Riley and I were so freaked out we didn't talk. Like, genuinely didn't talk for a stretch. We just walked. Faster. And I could feel my heart in my throat. It was that kind of fear where speaking feels like you might break something open. Later, when we finally did talk, we did that careful thing where you're trying not to lead the other person. Like, "Okay, tell me what you saw." And she described the exact same thing I saw. And here's the part that still gets me. Riley is a skeptic. She doesn't do paranormal. She's not the type to hype herself up or turn weird moments into spooky stories. If anything, she usually talks me down. But she couldn't explain it. And she didn't try to laugh it off. So, yeah, people say creatures like that could be anywhere. Maybe they can. I don't know. I just know where I live, Utah, right by the mountain, all that wildlife, and I know what I saw. Twice, with the same witness, the same timing, the same impossible, clean disappearance. And that's what makes me wonder, how often do we brush past something like that and never even realize it?